please all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all very much. At this time, I am going to turn to the village administrator for a couple of mayoral appointments.
Good evening, sir. We have 2 mayoral appointments for this evening. We'll start with the first one. Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the hiring of the Cooper's Beach attendant at a rate of $17.00 per hour, effective July 25th, 2024. Nicholas Alamia.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Anthony.
Second one. Resolved, Board of Trustees approves the hiring of the Cooper's Beach attendant at a rate of $17.00 per hour, effective August 8th, 2024. Julius Latanzio.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you for that. I am going to be doing the Employee Recognition Award that I received a very nice letter from Jackie Skrbinski of Fox Hollow Lane, and she wanted to call out the work of our code enforcement officer, Charles Pelez. And I would just read to you her brief note. I would like to commend and recognize Charles Pelez, the ordinance officer. On 2 occasions, Mr. Pelez responded quickly and solved the issue. In addition, several days later, he followed up with a phone call to ensure that I knew the issue was solved. Through this whole time, I felt very comfortable having someone in the village hall who cares about our neighborhood. Many thanks, Jacqueline Samarco Skrbinski, 76 Fox Hollow Lane. So because of this very kind letter I got from her and one of our newer employees' attention to enforcement in the village, I wanted to recognize him as an employee that should be recognized here in the village. So I thank Jackie for submitting the letter, and I thank Charles Pelez for his work as our code enforcement officer. With that, we will then turn to public hearings. The first public hearing is a proposed special permit for a workforce housing development and resort hotel use at 71 Hill Street in the Village of Southampton pursuant to 116-5F of the Village Code of Southampton. The property is further identified on the Suffolk County tax map as 0904-006-01-00008 and located at the northeast corner of Hill Street and Viridian Way. So I would like to make a motion to open this public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll turn to council here to take us through this.
Thank you. My name is John Bennett and Reed, 212 Windmill Lane, Southampton, New York, and with me are Scott Rose and John Rose, the project architects, also Dee Dee Gottheld, Terry Moan, and Eddie Moan, the principals. We did submit the affidavits of posting and mailing.
Just for the record, we did receive affidavits of posting, affidavits of mailing, the certified letter receipts, and you appear to have jurisdiction.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
So a little bit of history I want to give you, and then we'll jump right into it, and a little bit of background on how John and Scott walk you through the plan, and then I'm going to wrap up with some comments. This project is an amendment to an approved 2021 April, where the board approved the construction of a resort hotel building with 49 resort hotel units, 4 workforce housing units, and 4 market rate apartments. And I'm stressing those numbers because you'll see there's a change, and I think a significant beneficial change in what we're showing you this evening. Subsequent to that approval, and prior to John Rose and Scott and I becoming involved, there were several iterations of this plan after the trustee approval. And as far as I can tell, those plans were all reactions to Zoning Board of Appeals, Planning Boards of Appeals, and ARB concerns. Some of them, quite candidly, as I can see it, were outside of the jurisdiction of the relevant boards. So what we did is we tried to learn from all of that. After the client came to John Rose and Scott and I, and we decided to revise the entire site plan, not only in terms of the layout, but also in terms of the architecture, and come up with, I think, is an entirely approvable very sensitive plan, and a far superior plan, and a plan with less environmental impact and environmental and public benefits, significant public benefits. So working together, we came up with a totally new approach. The first thing that we did, and this was John Rose's thought, and it made a lot of sense, was we spent a couple of meetings with Dean McNamara, because that's a clear the fire and safety and emergency vehicle access concern, the circulation, in order to allow all types of emergency vehicle access, but how to fight a fire if something happens on the site was paramount in our concern, because we have to make sure that any new facility doesn't create issues along those lines. So the result that you see, and John will take you through it, is from those preliminary meetings with Dean in terms of handling the circulation and emergency vehicle access. That was, I think, a very wise way to approach it. That was the jumping off point. So that sets the framework. So we think that it's proper for not only the private circulation, but public emergency access vehicle concerns. And then architecturally, candidly, we were uninspired by the prior plan. And so John, who is I'm just going to say this, I think it's an objective truth, who's the perfect architect to work on this, having a sense of the village style, but not only by studying it throughout his years as an architect, but also having become by his design a good part of the sense of place, particularly in terms of preserving the village of Southampton style. So I was thrilled to be able to work with John and Scott and bring this into something that makes a lot more sense in terms of something you'd want to see in the village of Southampton. So thus we have the new plan, which is not only the result of the fire marshal plan, input from the clients. We had some preliminary conversations with the board members, with you folks who were kind enough to give us your thoughts, which were very, very, very helpful. What do we end up with here? We end up with a new proposal to create 40 hotel units, resort hotel units, as opposed to 40, with 20% of that, 8, in this instance, 8 workforce housing apartments. Those will be taken care, be in the south easterly building. That's double the prior iteration. The prior iteration had 4 market units and 4 workforce housing. We're talking about 8. So we dropped the number of resort units from 49 to 40 and increased the workforce apartment. There's also a relatively small staffing quarters proposed. So I think that's great. I think this is a significant moment for the village of Southampton. It's a great public benefit. We're creating 40 resort hotel units. There's a large need for this in the village. How many times have people have said to you, people call me as a resident, where can I stay in the village of Southampton? And it's quite rather limited. I know that, thank God, Southampton is primarily a second home and a primary home area, but it's important to service this. I think this will be a great shot in the arm to the downtown retail area, so that in and of itself is a public benefit. But of course, 8 units of workforce housing is also a significant public benefit. We think it should be easy, candidly, for this approval, but we would also like the board's approval not only on the workforce access of it, but we'd like the approval of the site plan and the architectural design and the traffic flow. We want the the village board's imprimatur on this. Yes, we have to go to different boards, but we want a strong imprimatur from you. Conditioning it on these sort of things, the site plan, the architecture, is totally within the plenary powers of this board. I'll be very candid with you. We want a strong direction and a strong message that the board is happy is this, because we don't want to see what I saw happen at the last time, which was there was a lot of reaction to different thoughts of different boards. Yes, they'll have to exercise their jurisdiction, but we'd like to ask you to put your strong stamp of approval, not only on the workforce housing aspect, but to do a studied look. And we think you'll come to agree with us that from an architectural point of view, a number of units, not only for the workforce housing, but also for the resort hotel units and the architecture, that this is a good plan. I want to introduce John and Scott to take you through this. And then after that, I want to talk a little bit about cross-access, because I want to tell you about some of the input that we've had from the planning board, and I will foreshadow a little bit of what I'm going to suggest to you, but I think it makes a lot of sense. Is I want you cross-access is on the table, but I want you guys to think about on your condition of approval to defer, to delegate that issue in terms of whether or not it should happen or should not happen on this, and if it happens, in what manner it should happen to the planning board, because they're the ones who are dealing with a couple of site plans coming in here. We've had some talks with them. We've had meetings with both the planning board and the movie folks next door. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that after John and Scott present the plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
Should I spin this around so they can do it properly, or is it?
I think they're getting it okay on the camera, but yeah.
As John said, John Rose and Scott Rose, the architects. It's a great project. We're very lucky to be involved in this project, working with the team, and working with John. I don't have to tell you, it's the first thing you see when you come into that part of the village. It's a really critical building. And I'm here to report that the bell tower, the clock tower will come down. That's an important thing. But here's the circulation here. And as John talked about, speak into the mic, please. As John talked about, the workforce housing is in the building we call F. To give you an idea, here is the movie theater.
Mm-hmm.
Here's Radian Way and the cul-de-sac at the end. This is the existing 20%. This building here will remain commercial, but of course they're going to be cleaned up. As I said, the clock tower comes down. We'll have to do a facelift and make it more handicap accessible and put in the necessary elevators to get people up and down to these spaces. So our building starts over here, and as John pointed out, one of the first people we met with was the fire marshal, because it's really about fighting fires. We chatted with the building inspectors, what do they want to see, materials and things like that. And what's really important is that these corners here, some of these are existing curb cuts, some have been done away with, but the radius, the turning radius, has to meet the requirements of the fire department. Something as simple as this drive through here, historically it's 24 feet. In order to make it good for the fire department, it's supposed to be 26 feet. So it's much more generous. So the traffic, God forbid there's ever a fire, would be like this and come around and around the building. We have 20 units in this half, which shows up here. And then the other half is an additional 20 units over on this side here. In between the two is an indoor pool, because it's about year-round use. It's enclosed with glazing like this, and the shed dormers up above to dump light into it. The entrances to the building are here and here on this side. All of the parking requirements are met on our property. We require no additional parking. Of course, we know that Radian Way people do park there, and I suspect that may continue, but we don't need to use any of that for our requirements here. Green space, I think we're about 25% of the property is now at green space. That's a big number. We're quite happy with that. Architecturally, I've always been influenced by McKim White's work, John Russell Pope's work, some of the work in Newport by McKim White. So certainly not replicating any of their work, but if you're familiar with some of ours, the gambrel space, the gambrel shape is a very common shape in the village. Not too far from here are several buildings of similar shape, but we're not copying them in any way. Materials will be natural. It's important that when it's done, a couple years down the road, it looks like it's been here forever. I'm not replicating history, but I certainly want to make sure it gets along with all the great buildings that are here in the village. As I said, the buildings on the main front here will be reconditioned, and of course, as we get further with the architecture review board, because obviously it has to go through them, we'll start to look at how we fix those up. They definitely need a facelift, we know that. But they're in great position. We're very excited about it. I have Scott here to really go over the number crunching to give you the idea of the areas, the number of parking and all that sort of stuff. But I just wanted you to know that we recognize this is a really important spot. This is what you're going to see when you pull in. When you pull into the village, this is what you see. It's important that it's right. And we think that, I think we've got it now. It's taken a while to get here, and we appreciate your input and the other board's input, and I think we're there. Having said that, Scott, you want to give us some details?
Sure. So we have the 40 hotel units. We have the 8 workforce housing units, and then we have 2,700 square feet of commercial space in Building E. With that got us to a total of 59 parking spaces required. We used the reduction factor when doing the commercial spacing, so we took 60% of what is actually required and got down to a total of 9. Of that, 5% or 3 handicap spaces are required for the whole site, which we have dispersed throughout strategically around main entrance points to each of the hotel A and B in the commercial space. Let's see here. We had 2 truck parking spaces, but I think we can actually go down to 1 now that we are below 40,000 square feet. This building on 2.5 floors with 40 hotel units, including circulation, mechanical space, stairwells, and elevators, and all hotel rooms and the indoor pool, comes to 34,906 square feet.
And the size of each unit is 600 square feet.
Yes, each hotel unit is approximately 600 square feet. Each of the workforce housing, we're going to reutilize the 8 current commercial spaces, which vary from 710 to 1,200 square feet each, plus or minus here and there because we have to add elevators and proper egress to each of them. But they will be very generous sized, larger than the hotel units. We're going to have 4 seasonal staff housing units down in the lower level with all egress, where we will have 2 employees per unit for a total of 8 employees, so 4 units. We didn't do dormitory style, so everyone's not crowded. We then, let's see here. Yep, sanitation remains in the northern part. That has not changed and that has been approved. We have balconies off of all these and covered balconies.
So wait, just
sorry.
so we don't brush over that. So that it's going to be treated on site.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we're not just
Sewage
having
treatment plant. Yes.
right sewage treatment plant on site for this whole lot.
For everything,
Yeah.
commercial, workforce, and hotel.
And the leaching fields would be where?
Everything is located
On
on
the
the north
property.
side.
On the property.
Yes, on the property.
Full on-site wastewater treatment.
Yes. So as my father said, we did not need any additional off-site parking. So all parking is located on-site. When we adjusted the curb cuts, we moved one that was in the middle of Radian Way over to the north end, which could pick up 1 or 2 additional village parking spaces by doing so.
Could I ask you to describe the workforce housing? Is it a mix of studios and
They will be 1-bedroom units. not
all
studios.
will be one bedroom?
Even
Yes.
the 1,200 square foot one.
Yes, for parking reasons.
If I could clarify, because we're reusing a lot of the existing walls that are there. Currently, it's 1,200 square feet, but to Scott's point, when we put in circulation, elevators, and mechanicals, it's going to be below 1,000 square feet.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So it comes down a little bit.
Okay.
We'll make sure we take it out of the bigger one and leave the smallest one still much bigger than the hotel units.
And could you also describe the commercial space?
Sure. Commercial space is building E here. We don't have any division yet, but we did accommodate for square footage of just the single first floor. There's no basement currently there. We're going to leave it as such. There is no access to the second floor except for attic space, so we're going to leave that as well. So it's just going to be a single level commercial space, which is currently being used as such. The clock tower comes down.
What
right
is
up
the
that
use
hill.
right now? Actually, Scott, I don't even know.
I'm sorry?
What is the use right now again? I forget.
It's a commercial space. I believe there's an art gallery there. Yeah, retail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because certainly, because of traffic, it would be nice if maybe there was some office space there as well, and it wasn't all retail of 2,000 square feet, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if that's possible.
There's plenty of ways to access that one building, so there's nothing saying that it couldn't be divided up into several units that could be a mix.
Okay.
We haven't gotten, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay, okay,
Right
okay.
now, it's very broad strokes. We
Right.
know that we have an envelope we're going to work with, and it's plenty big, and we'll fill it in if there's guidance. We'll certainly listen to that.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Thank you.
Yep, green space is 25%. Let's see here. See if there's anything else here.
I think that covers the lion's share of it.
Yep.
Can we answer any questions for you?
Let me tell you where else we would have to go. You need your approval, amending the prior approval. I don't think there's any seeker issue at all, because you have an egg deck, you had 9 additional units of resort hotel that we're taking away, and you have 8 as opposed to 4 workforce housing, and people may find this a surprise, but there's a Court of Appeals case called Chinese Staff Workers versus Koch, Ed Koch, the mayor. And it's interesting because the Court of Appeals said when you're looking at environmental impact, one of the things that you look at is the availability of, in effect, workforce and affordable housing. So the fact that we are increasing the amount of workforce housing actually reduces, as per the language of Chinese Staff Workers versus Koch, it reduces the environmental impact. It's a positive environmental impact. And of course, taking away the 9 units, which was based upon some discussions with board members, some of the public members. So we think that we're fine from a seeker point of view. Where else do we have to go? Well, we have to go to the Architectural Review Board, and we're pretty confident, particularly in juxtaposition to the prior architecture, that this is a wonderful plan. We think we'll be greeted with warm hands, open arms there. We have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a couple of reasons. The Zoning Board of Appeals has special exception approval for pools in the Village Business Zone. Why, I don't know, but that's where it is. And you'll all know that a special exception is a use that is permitted upon the special exception. There's some standards that we have to meet. We're more than very confident we can meet those standards. The other thing that we have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals for, at first, the last iteration needed some variance relief along Viridian Way, because there's a section of the village code that in the village business you can't be more than 3 feet from the right of way. Well, we've fixed that, so we don't have to worry about that because we're not 3. We've met that. But there's also a section in the village code that I think is clearly meant for Job's Lane and for Main Street, and it says your building has to take up 90% of your frontage. Well, it simply doesn't make sense when we're talking about a hotel that's clearly meant for retail amongst those very traditional, cheap, jowl, wonderful buildings. So we'll go to the ZBA for that, but we're confident that we can make an excellent case there. So A or B, and we'll go to the planning board. But again, I want to stress to your council that we'd like this board's imprimatur on this plan, and of course we're willing to talk about whatever it is that you could see that could improve it, although we think we've really done our homework. I do want to talk a little bit about cross-access here. And I very respectfully request that in your approval of this, you in effect delegate that question of cross-access if and when there should be cross-access on this parcel. We've met with the planning board. As everyone knows, the movie theater is in, including some potential uses of the building to the west there. And cross-access has been an issue because of the inability to create cross-access without essentially taking these cross-access points through an area of parking and pedestrian use. So if I may, I think since I'm asking you to defer to the planning board on that, it's only fair, and I'll try to be as succinct as possible, but it's only fair for me to take you through our thinking on this and to give you some of the comments that were made at the planning board. Maybe I can have everybody, this is just an aerial of, thank you, Steve. Grab one for yourself. So that's a general aerial of the area. What's pivotal is not encouraging traffic through these parking lots. That's a disaster. It's a liability issue. It doesn't make any sense from a planning point of view. Where does the concept of cross-access come from? There's a case called Holmes versus Planning Board of the Town of Newcastle, which was up in Westchester County. And what were they trying to do there? In Holmes, they were dealing with these strip malls, where you'd have 10, 11, 12, 13 businesses, and they all had their own curb cuts. So in homes, they said, if you're going to further develop that strip mall, we want those curb cuts lessened, because you're on a highway or on a major road or a through road, and we don't want 13 access points. We want you to share the access coming in, and that's what Homes was all about. Homes was about driving. What drove the cross access in the Homes Planning Board, it was a typical strip mall where every unit had a curb cut. Closing up curb cuts so you wouldn't have multiple points of traffic infliction. We're not talking here about curb cuts. The curb cuts exist on Viridian Way, and then the curb cuts at the movie theater. So cross access, and we've had a long discussion and quite a few meetings about this, and including with the planning board and the neighbors. What you would do is encourage through traffic through the parking lots, and again, that's a disaster. What are going to happen? Everybody's sat heading south on Hill Street, on Windmill Lane, to make the right to go onto Hill Street, and the traffic backs up. So what happens is, invariably, what will happen is people will try to make this right off of heading south on Windmill Lane, what I call is the La Caressa building, work their way through these parking lots, no matter where you put it, through these parking lots, and then over into this site, into another series of parking lots to try to get out, and do, in effect, a shortcut or bypass through this, which is just going to end up creating more traffic issues for the right-hand turn out of Viridian Way onto Hill Street.
You're talking about people who are not utilizing any of the buildings, because that would be illegal. Okay, just saying.
Okay.
It's already illegal.
There's illegal, and there's what happens. And everybody, and you have to spend about 5 minutes driving out here when people don't obey signage, and that's what's going to happen. Because there's no other need for any sort of why you typically impose cross access, which is to cut down on curb cuts. And this is a hotel. This is a movie theater. It's not like cross access for retail. That's why I talk about the Homes case, and it's not about cutting down on any curb cuts. The frustrating thing for me as a land use lawyer is that people say, oh, cross access, you have to have cross access, you have to have cross access. It doesn't always make sense. So just indulge me a little bit, some of the comments from the planning board and the planning board said, look, we have to look at this. We may not require cross access, or we may, but I want to read you some of the planning board member comments in terms of this cross access. He's used it for 40 years since the Viridian Way went in. They used to use it a lot, this circular route. It's really unwise to open it up for vehicles. It's totally unsound. Some of those residences west of that place will take 40 minutes to the light. It's a ghastly situation. It will increase traffic for Hill Street. I don't want a road. I think that's a bad idea for the village. And it definitely becomes more unsafe the more traffic comes here. We do not want to create a backdoor road to cut through, and we know that's what people are going to do. These are planning board comments from the July 15th planning board meeting, but the chairman wisely said, we don't want to make a determination now. We have to study this. We have to look at the various site plans and how they come in. So I'm going to ask you to defer to the planning board for cross-access and let them work it out. How is cross-access supposed to work? And when has it worked? I'm going to show you some projects that I've been involved with in the town, just in the outlying areas of the town. The best use of how cross-access works when you're trying to cut down on the number of entry points to the road, or in between similar uses, is probably the, well, I'm dating myself, it's the old Star Lanes bowling alley. It used to be, Pier 1, and
Yeah. Then it was a nightclub for a while.
it was a nightclub for a while, then it was
It was called Le Mans.
Le
Yeah.
Mans,
Yeah.
yes, it was, aptly. But if it's worth a gander, it's worth a drive down there. You make the right off of Flying Point Road. Let me hand these out. You make the right off of Flying Point Road
from Hampton Road, and then you go to the back of that whole series of complexes. And what you see, what I'm showing you is a road that travels along the southerly spine of that complex. And this is where cross-access, full cross-access makes sense. And what you're looking at and what you're seeing is the fact is that nowhere does that cross-access interfere with parking. It doesn't interfere with people moving in and out of parking spaces. It doesn't interfere with pedestrians. This would be a disaster having cross-access here in my humble opinion. This is how cross-access is supposed to work, but it's not attainable on this site because the northerly boundary of the movie theater is all parked up. Then you come into parking, and the uses are not such that they lend themselves to cross-access. Pedestrian access makes a lot of sense, and we provided for that. There's a little bit of fighting about that, but I think we provided for that very well because it does make sense for people to go from the hotel units to the movie site. And there's also some restaurants it's talked about there that they may patronize, but nothing to do with the typical homes situations, homes versus planning board, where you're trying to cut down on the number of curb cuts. The curb cuts are here; they will be here. It's not going to cross-access is not going to do anything to remove that. So when you have the opportunity to have a separate, actual designated cross-access road that's divorced from all the parking, it makes sense. The other projects that I've been involved with where it was achieved, and I don't think the access way has gotten all the way through, but I'll show you. This is an aerial. I'll represent to you that it's the Lexus of Southampton, and I will represent to you, having been counsel for Lexus, that the last 50 feet of the Lexus, the northerly 50 feet, is as a cross-access point, and the attempt is, as these units come in, to grab cross-access out of all of the units, and that makes a lot of sense, so that you can come in off of County Route 39/27 or David Lights Lane and access all of these uses by a road that travels the spine of the north of this entire complex. Divorced again from all the parking. That makes a lot of sense, but you can't achieve that there. These are the comments that the planning board considered. The planning board, some of the members were in absolute agreement. Some of the members wanted to take a look at it. It was probably the wiser choice. But I would ask you to defer to them and their site, because they're looking at this site plan. They're going to look at this site plan, and I would ask you to defer that. I'll just make that request.
Can I make a suggestion? Can I make a suggestion?
Oh, certainly. Yeah.
Maybe at the cross-access you can put a movable barrier so that cars will see a barrier, they won't go through and they won't try it. Whereas if an emergency vehicle needs to go through,
Yeah,
they can move the barrier.
No.
So that would prevent automobiles from using the cross-access, but leave it available for emergency vehicles.
I should have said that. I meant to say that. Yes, the thought would be to have some sort of what in the old days we called a crash gate or something like that, so that there would be plenty of access for emergency vehicles.
If I could add one, a fair amount of topography changing. So it's approximately a 4-foot drop from this property to there. So it's not something, as I was one of those people that used to cut the corner. The topography is right here. Deny that in public, but you have to really be careful going up there. So emergency vehicles, used the word last into there to fight a fire, I suspect, may frown on doing that, especially to open it up this way, but we can certainly examine it.
But
As well as the steep hill by La Carezza.
Yeah, they won't be able to make that turn here off of the window. So,
But I
Police
don't,
cars
I
can.
think we should have, I
Have
don't have any
yours.
problem with having, the fire, I'm just a little bit of knowledge, the fire department, their crash trucks or something, if they needed to get access through there, I wouldn't want to have a solid barrier. We can
Right,
certainly
not a solid
provide
barrier.
that. Yeah, absolutely, there's no question about that. I think that's wise.
And that would allow the cross-access
That would, for
and
emergency.
resolve the issue of the cars that want to cross.
We, having people doing what they're going to do, yes, Eileen, it is illegal, but you're right, but that's what's going to happen now. So we want to take every step to avoid that, number one. And number two, the reasons I talked about the Holmes case and the reason I talk about the site-specific nature of cross-access is to say that the typical ills that you try to cure by requiring cross access are not here. So again, what I can do is ask that you defer to the planning board on that. I don't know, I think that's it.
Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Oh, sure.
The building really looks massive. Can you give me some dimensions like elevation, depth, width, so we understand what we're looking at here? And then about the workforce housing, you say it's 20%, but it's really 16% because you take 48 units and then you take the 8 units divided by 48. And we're looking at
40
excuse me?
hotel. And take
yes, but it's total 48 units with the workforce housing.
No, it's based upon.
we were proposing.
I know what you took, but usually the way it's calculated, look at the total number of units, and then you divide the workforce housing units by the total, and you get the percentage. So it's really 16%. But apart from that, we just had a presentation where they're proposing for for high density, they propose 100%, but for lower density, they're proposing 25% workforce housing. And I was wondering if you would be amenable to increase the number of workforce housing by maybe using some of the units that you have on the hotel itself.
I think
And these are resorts units with kitchens, so they could be used for long-term use as well.
I think that's fair to say that's a solid no. We thought going from 4 to 8 was very generous, and we thought going from 4 to 8 was something that provides a good shot in the arm in terms of the availability. This also has to work economically, and it would not work economically that way. It simply would, because as you're all well aware, those workforce housing units are subject to very, very sharp limits on.
Yeah, the difference is though that the units that are seasonal usually be rented full-time, maybe the 3 months, maybe 4 months, but the workforce housing be year-round. So whereas you may have vacancies on the hotel units, you'll have full use on the workforce housing, so it may make up some of the difference. I'm just proposing just a suggestion that may be, because I'm looking also for the benefit to the village in creating such a large structure.
It's very difficult sometimes because some people say to you, come in with something that is X, knowing that you're going to go down to X minus something. We've really pared this to the bone in terms of what makes sense from an economic point of view. Candidly, Ed, I'm a little bit surprised because this board already approved a plan with 4. We're doubling that number to 8. You had 4 workforce units and 4 market units. We had a lot of long conversations about this. The numbers have to make sense. Think about it, we had an approval for 49 resort hotel units and 4 workforce housing. We're before you with 49 less and 8 workforce housing. I think that's pretty darn good.
Well, this is my first viewing.
Okay, I'm sorry. Fair enough. Yeah, that's why it was important to talk about the history of it. I think this has moved along in a way that provides a benefit not only from the hotel units but also the workforce units. And I don't mean to like.
And we're going
back
back,
you
and
off
we're
like
going
that,
we're
but-
going back to the percentage though. You're not really given 20%, and maybe the village is looking for 25%. So.
Well,
Maybe it can be part of a
It
discussion.
would probably withdraw the application. There's no sense beating around the bush about this stuff. Certain things you can say, okay, we can look at that, we can go back. We came forward with what we think is a very generous workforce component, and coupled with, you've already given that a negative declaration. You've already said okay to 49 units. I'm sort of scratching my head when we're coming with 40 and 8.
So John, what are the
It's just
dimensions
not
of
there.
what are the elevations and dimensions of the project?
So
It's 2.5 stories.
we can give you more dimensions on it, but it's,
They're all
the
within-
height is similar to the homes we do in the village of Southampton.
So about 30 feet,
35 is
35.
35 feet. So this is going to be about 35 feet high
Some of it,
and
not all of
about
it.
maybe 35 feet depth.
Well, it goes in and out a little bit.
Right.
It's approximately that.
Yes.
Yeah, and the width?
Mm,
I can get that for you then. It was removed.
It was on the survey, it's been removed.
Yeah.
Approximately 300 feet?
The two buildings plus the swimming pool?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so
It
it's,
reads as two buildings though, with the
Yeah.
swimming pool. Obviously, it's much lighter, and quite frankly, each one of those buildings, I've done homes in the village considerably bigger than this.
Now, remember
how
also.
green will the buildings be?
Yeah, no,
How green will the buildings be?
Certainly the heating systems, the air conditioning systems, the glazing, the sanitary system. We're gonna do our best, as you know, as they get bigger, sometimes they get tougher. We think there's opportunities to green them up. There's talk about solar panels, so there's some areas for solar panels on the roof.
Along the ridge line here, along the ridge line here,
That'd be good.
they're extra wide. So there's gonna be a flat area that's recessed. So now the solar panels will be able to sit on the roof, but you will not see them on the street.
Excellent. Yeah,
So
that'd
they're
be
gonna be
good.
hidden, concealed, and still generate the maximum sun.
And you really have enough space for a leaching field? I mean,
Yes.
it
Yep.
looks,
Yeah, that was from Suffolk County.
yeah, so they
That was
already looked
designed
at
by
it.
an engineering firm.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And it's already been through the health department.
The other thing I want to talk about the length of the unit along Viridian Way, your code drives us there, and even with this plan, we need a variance.
They wanted it
So
You want it?
The code says it has to be longer.
code
to be
says it has to be
longer?
90%.
It has to be 90%,
Overall
yeah.
length of the property line.
So
This-
the
this
original
currently-
plan we had to make it so that we didn't have to go to the zoning board of appeals, but we're now going to take that trip. The building ran from here all the way to here. That's one.
Yeah.
That's one street frontage, and then it ran here. It was a large.
It's like an L shape.
L.
It was
It was
a
an
large
L
L
shape.
A large L.
So your code drives us there.
So just to summarize, so if this is, whatever this dimension is, 90% of it had to be covered with building fronting.
Right.
We're not quite there,
We're at
but the
68%.
code is the driver for the length of this building.
It's providing a little more green space.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, we're up to 25%.
Yeah.
Pretty big.
And our task with that is to go to the zoning board of appeals and
Mhm.
convince them that net this is a much more beneficial
Mhm.
design for the very reasons that I think you talked
Mhm.
about, which is we're trying to moderate the
Right.
mess of it.
What do you think of the traffic impact?
These
We
are
have
not
a-
big traffic generators relative to like a retail use or something like that.
Right.
Hotels are not big traffic generators. They simply aren't.
How many units are in the existing hotel on the west side?
Dee, how many units do you have to the west there?
90 units.
90 units.
This adds 40, so. One of the concerns, of course, is 40 units, there'll be more cars. I mean, there has been a use there in the past before the building was abandoned and the cars were entering and egressing just fine. So I don't really have a problem with it, but we all know how bad Hill Street is right now. And so 40 units now egressing, I think that what your point is well taken with the cross access. Some might say, well, it'd be great if people could get out of the hotel instead of going onto Hill Street, if they could sort of filter through to the other streets. But I also know what it's like around here at 5 p.m. And they're not going to be filtering out onto Job's Lane not Job's Lane, onto Windmill Lane. It's going to be going the other way. And as village attorney said, it is illegal, but I also know it's illegal to make right turns off of Bishop's Lane in Somerset, and everybody still does it, even though Chief Hertow tries to do a good job to stop people from doing that. So
It's also illegal at
She was here somewhere.
I also have to apologize because I did yell at one of the seasonals the other day for
Uh-oh.
ticketing somebody from making that going across the double line. So-
I'm pretty impressed with the plan. I think we need more housing, more places for people to stay in the village, and we need more workforce housing in the village, and you've reduced the density of that. And it's got to be economically sound, so.
It has to work. The one thing I will say is that hotel, as opposed, and tell me to get my day job at any time, but you get to be a little bit of a traffic engineer. This just doesn't. retail and what was there before, there were office buildings. You have chip generation in the morning, you have chip generation in the afternoon, and it's all bunched up. This is not going to have the same. This will have a more dispersed trip generation hotel generally. And again, everyone was fine with the traffic when you had greater density here by 9 units. So again, I view this as an amendment, albeit a far superior amendment but to something that you already have approved.
Yeah, I was just going to say that BFJ was asked, that's Buckhurst-Fish FMAR, the village, planning consultants, was asked to look at this, and they have come back with saying that the vehicle trips will decrease with this plan because the existing 6,600 approximately square feet of retail strip is a major contributor to the above traffic loads that were done 2 years ago. And by eliminating a lot of the retail, you're obviously going to decrease that. Their analysis says that in the AM peak hour, it will generate 21 trips. The PM peak hour will generate 30, and the Saturday peak hour will generate 33, which is less than what has been currently happening there. But I just wanted to let you know that they did do an analysis based on your latest design, and we just got this report yesterday. That's why I haven't been able to share it yet.
Maybe I have a second career as a founder.
Yeah. So they said that the AM peak hour, the traffic may be similar to what is going on there now, but the PM is approximately 64% lower, and the Saturday peak hour is approximately 47% lower. So they're saying that this plan is actually going to decrease the traffic, especially in the afternoon when Hill Street is especially bad.
That's great. I did not know that. That was my suspicion, but it's
Yeah.
nice to have somebody.
And I'm sorry for not sharing this. We just got this. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
But anyway.
It's not a surprise. So
Yeah.
it's good.
Roy, did you have anything else for Robin?
No, thank you so very much.
Okay, well then we're going to open it up to the public.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
sorry.
one more question. On the cross access, you're going to lose 3 parking spaces. So I just wonder if you.
Do we have to lose 3 if there's cross access?
Yes.
They get shifted, and then the green space reduces.
No, I understand. Okay, all right. Well, let's thank you very much, but let's open it up to the public since this is a public hearing. So anyone wishing to be heard on this public hearing, please come forward. I don't know if we have anyone on Zoom, Sage. Okay, no one in the audience? Oh, Jay Deasing, okay.
Good evening. My name is Jay Deasing. I'm a resident of the village. I think one improvement would be to open up the access at the back end of Veradian Way. My understanding is that when this original complex was created, that land was put aside so that at some point that could be connected. And I would think it would make a huge amount of sense to have a right turn only out of that.
Went down on the Cooper's Farm?
Allowing people to go down to the Cooper's Farm light and then either head east, north, or south, whatever they needed to do.
At Windmill, in
At
front of the
Windmill.
library.
Oh, yeah.
Who owns that property that you said?
It's
was
the village.
set aside?
I think the
Village,
village.
we own that, yes.
I'll say right off, Jay, if I may, we would never have a problem with that. I do know that was the plan, but there was.
It was a plan a long time ago. Yes,
That
I
was the
remember.
hue and cry when
John, it was
tried to
probably
be
about
implemented, though, so-
1982.
I mean,
I
yeah,
think.
it does make sense. But, I mean, so-
But you can actually make it a right turn only. You would have
And
no
one way
entrance,
out, not
only,
so that you don't have
only an
people
exit.
cutting through to go
Um,
down Hill Street.
I think that would be a big improvement on the plan.
Property, parkland?
Yeah, you get the village could do
Not
that.
right there.
The
It's
village could do
actually
that at their,
was
their
for a
whim,
leaching field,
Jay.
actually.
The
I
village
love
could-
WIM.
No, the village could do that at their whim. That you this is a dedicated road, you have
Yeah.
a bike path here, but
We put the bike
and,
path
and
in.
you own and the village owns this.
Correct.
So I mean, if you want to do that, there's nothing we can say.
No, yeah, I think I appreciate that comment, Jay, and I think what I would do is I would go to the village's now traffic consultant, VHB, and ask them about that and see what they think of that idea. Yeah,
And the other-
I'd obviously want a traffic engineer to look at that and give us what the consequences would be.
Mm-hmm.
Dee Dee, can you come forward a bit? Because your memory might be better than mine, but I recall back in the planning board days, you came before the plan, it had to be 10 or 12 years ago,
40 years ago.
with this very idea, and for some reason it couldn't be done, but I can't recall why.
There are leaching fields.
Yeah.
We certainly had been trying to incorporate that and make it into green space and to try to do something with that access. It was a combination of not having roadways on top of the leaching fields, and also there was a tremendous cry out from the people who lived on Cooper's Farm Road, not wanting to have such enormous traffic. And it's not enormous traffic, again, I want to reiterate, from this project, because one of the beauties is that you're going to have potentially 40 units of, 48 with the housing, but 40 units of hotel and hospitality. People will arrive in the middle of the day. They're going to park their car and they walk to everything, we hope, and hopefully on a year-round basis, so it would reduce traffic. And then the checkout is at 11, so they're not going to be staying until 4 o'clock and getting on the road to join the trade parade going west. But the people who live in the Cooper's Farms area and the townhouses that George Submergent had built were extremely unhappy, and that's why that had been blocked. And it's why I had originally thought we would green over Viridian as long as we had it for access for emergency vehicles. But it didn't appear, and I think your recollection is correct, that there was a possibility ever of breaking through, and especially to alleviate that traffic. But sorry.
So, Jay, it's not a no, it's just, it's the village could do it, it just has to be the will, because politically it
Yeah.
became very difficult.
And I think it would be wise to ask the village traffic engineer to look at that possibility and see what the consequences, may be. But I appreciate the idea, Jay, because I think it has merit. Yeah.
Yes. Would it also be possible to give us the code and the calculations that you had for the 49 units originally? I'm just sort of wondering the previous approval.
I'll send you the approval.
Yeah, I would just be interested to sort of see that, because obviously this is an improvement, but we just sort of like to see how
Yeah,
that.
the previous approval was done before I was on the board.
Yes, it's
I was-
2021, I guess. Is that what you're saying?
I was not on the board at the time, so, yeah. But obviously that was something that had been done previously.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send you the approval, Jay, there's no problem with that.
And actually, even the cross circulation between the lots, I mean, I remember in the early 90s dining up at Plaza Cafe, and it was always nice to have two ways in and out of there. And because of the drop down, I never saw cars speeding through there or, having problems. And I never saw people sort of coming from Hill Street to use this as some sort of shortcut, because you end up in the middle of Windmill Lane. I just think the more entrances and exits that we would have in this, what's becoming a large compounded area, makes sense to me. So I wouldn't take that off the table. I mean, I think as a village, when it comes to traffic, we're going to have to make some mistakes because we have to do some things. And we're not going to know if it works until we do it. So I think don't take everything off the table. Thank you.
As I said, my request was that you delegate and defer to the planning board on that issue, because they're dealing with the various different site plans. But in any event, we'll take that under advisement, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else in the room would like to speak on this topic, public hearing?
No, I just wanted to say we're going to keep this hearing open, Mr. Bennett, because by the time we received your documents, we didn't have enough time to give 10 days public notice in the paper. So we're going to renotice it for September 12th, continue the hearing on that day.
Just to make sure the documents were in before 10 days, I think it was actually.
Yeah, but we had to have a meeting date. It wasn't your fault, it just
Okay.
the way the meeting, I wasn't blaming anybody. It was just yes, sorry. No, just the
No,
timing of
no.
the meeting date, and we couldn't get it in online even sooner, so that's all. Yeah. So we're going to keep it open till the 12th. We're renoticing it, and then we'll close it that day. And
So I will make the motion this time that we will continue to have this hearing kept open. And at the next public meeting on the 12th of September, we will resume. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Thank you, guys. All right, we'll go on to the next public hearing. This is Local Law 28 of 2024, a local law amending Chapter 97, subdivision of land of the Village Code of Southampton to provide for cluster subdivisions as recommended by the 2022 revision to the village's comprehensive plan. So I'll make a motion to open this public hearing. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Well, I'm going to defer to Council Eileen Powers to just maybe discuss what this is doing exactly, and then we'll see if we have members of the public that would like to be heard on this topic.
Well, the cluster subdivisions was a recommendation in the 2022 revision of the village's comprehensive plan. It essentially gives the planning board the authority to require a cluster plan when somebody comes in to when someone proposes a subdivision within the village. And the idea is to not reduce the number of homes that are permitted in the subdivision, but to cluster them so that there is more open space. So the houses would be on smaller lots, and then we would preserve more of the property for open space. So
Right.
that's essentially the idea here.
Yeah, and the village has examples of cluster subdivisions.
We've done it before in the
Yeah.
village
Yeah.
without it being required in the code, or being able to be mandated in the code.
Yeah.
The village planning board would now have the ability to require the cluster.
Right, and again, it doesn't reduce the number of homes that would be permitted. It just says they're actually allowed to have smaller lots so that
They would
more
go on-
space
right.
is kept open as opposed to just being
Right.
divided up.
And it could be open space. There is the possibility that it would be agricultural space.
Yeah.
So,
One example that comes to mind is the cobble field development off of Narrow Lane,
right.
where when you drive by, you see a lot of green grass, and all the houses are clustered towards the rear of that property. That's just one example. There are others. But anyway, so who would like to come forward and be heard on this local law? John Bennett.
Thank you. I submitted a letter on August 7th. John Bennett. I represent the Fowler family. As the board is no doubt aware, we have received sketch plan approval for a subdivision in the easterly part of the town, which actually has a 25% agricultural open space area. Despite the fact that currently the board doesn't there's no mandatory cluster.
It also has a reduced yield.
Excuse me?
It also has a reduced yield.
It also has a reduced yield from 12 to 7 units. Thank you.
Right.
And we were happy to see that there's a grandfathering provision
Yes.
in the law, which
It
says
will-
that these
this
changes
will not affect
the
anybody
Fowler
that has
subdivision.
applications pending before any of the land use boards in the village.
So the one I did want to suggest, however, that even though it's not going to affect the Fowler subdivision, it doesn't. I'm scratching my head. I'm thinking that must have been a mistake by the drafter.
Uh-oh.
You don't want to put. I'm sorry, Eileen. I don't think
okay.
you want to
Take it.
require if it's open space up in the moraine or something where it's not going to be used for agricultural purposes. That's one thing. You can say either you have to give it to the public or it has to go in a homeowners association. But ag land, you don't want to require that the property, the open space, the ag parcel be put in a homeowners association. For example, Section 247
Sure.
7D of the town code says that it can be retained by the agricultural owner with an agricultural easement running to the town.
Right.
So the farmer retains it. You don't want to force somebody to put
No,
it.
so we're in receipt of your letter. I know Eileen said she was going to look into this.
Yeah,
One-
I did look at it. I didn't really read it that it requires it the way you did. It's Property Owners Association is one option the planning board has.
It says the public or a property owners association.
Well, it says if we do that. I mean, I think it gives you different.
Well, I think you should amend it though and say,
Yeah, I'm
if
not
I may,
opposed to that.
can be retained by the agricultural owner with an ag easement running
To make
to
it
the
more
town.
clear, I'm not opposed to that. I will.
Okay.
I
So
will
John, the
look
one
into what it
question I
says.
wanted to know though is what if that land is no longer farmed and no longer used as agricultural land? What happens to it? Who has sort of authority over it?
If you look at the ag easements
Yeah.
that I've been aware of,
Yeah.
and again, this is just an academic discussion, there's never any affirmative duty to farm. You have to maintain it in a way so that it will not deplete the prime agricultural soils. You have to keep.
So whoever the owner is has to do that,
Yes,
though?
yeah, yeah. I mean,
Okay,
you
it
would
can't just be
typically require
abandoned
that.
or something like that?
No. You can't do that.
Okay.
Putting ag in a homeowners association, though.
Yeah, I don't see
It
that.
started. I just
No, we
just had these wonderful ideas of the homeowners association.
Yeah, I get it.
Trying to
I
deal
get it.
with the ag land. Oh, it's like a comedy
Yeah,
sketch
I mean,
already.
it's
They'll grow tomatoes.
I know, I
You know,
appreciate.
I was supposed to have my horses on Thursday and Friday over
appreciate,
there. What's wrong with you? You know?
your comments, John, and
Right.
again, we'll work
Yeah,
with
we're
this with
looking-
Eileen. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a
wasn't
million.
mandatory.
But the good news for me anyway, and for the Fowler family, is these don't apply to the Fowler
Correct,
subdivision,
correct,
which is
correct,
great.
correct.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So we support the adoption with that grandfather.
No, and we thank the Fowler family for reducing the yield
Oh,
and
yeah.
also for having what looks to be a significant amount that will be preserved.
25%.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
And
thank
thank you
you.
for saying that.
Yeah,
Really
yeah.
appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else wish to be heard on this topic? Sage, anyone on Zoom? No hands, okay.
We're also going
sorry.
to, I'm sorry, we're also going to keep this open.
Yes,
to
we will keep
September
this
12th.
open.
Yeah, we do need to
Thank you, John.
send it to the county,
Thank you.
et cetera, so.
Thank you to the Roses. Okay, do any of the board members wish to talk on this public hearing? Speak? No, okay. All right, well then I will
Keep it
move
open.
to keep this open until September 12th, where we will resume discussion of the subdivision of land, local law 28 of 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with that, we will turn to the administrator for correspondence to the board.
We have a total of 3 correspondence from the board. The first one is from Jocelyn Palmer, and they're raising a concern about the parking condition over at the church at 70 Cameron.
Okay,
The next 2 all deal with the traffic condition over on Captain's Neck Lane and Lee Avenue, and that is from Lauren Santo Domingo and Steve Markoff and Jeff Malinsky.
all right, thank you very much. I did ask the chief to be here so that she could address some of the traffic issues we experience in this village, which I think have never been worse. And I am all ears for ideas. That's to the public too, if they have ideas on how we can eliminate some of the volume of cars in our village. But I'm going to turn it over to the chief to just address this specifically, because we have been getting many letters and emails and phone calls about the traffic situation, especially in the western part of the village.
Thank you.
Thank you, chief.
All right. So I do get all of the emails from the mayor and from the Traffic Safety Committee about Lee Avenue. And some of the concerns, and they're not any new concerns, they're reoccurring concerns, and they're valid. Residents are requesting a left turn restriction be put back in place immediately. We did a left turn restriction during a traffic pilot program back in 2022 for 4 weeks. Traffic is at a standstill. It's backed up and down and around ox pasture between 4 and 6:30, sometimes later. When it gets backed up on ox pasture, it then goes down to Captain's Neck Lane, and people are trying to get onto Hill Street that way as well. Residents can't get out of their driveways. Drivers are becoming impatient, road rage, and residents on Lee Avenue feel that it's dangerous to make the left turn onto Hill Street from Lee Avenue. And again, we did this traffic study back in 2022 after the pilot program, and it's my understanding that the engineers then did not recommend that the left turn restriction be included for Lee Avenue and Captain's Neck Lane. The residents want signage placed indicating no access to Hill Street, and also no left turns placed on Captain's Neck and Lee Avenue. The issues I have with that is the signs will be unenforceable, and there's no legislation in place to allow the police to enforce it. If the board decides to move forward with passing a local law, the PD, of course, will do our best to enforce it. However, we can barely keep up with the right turns restriction on Somerset, Bishops, and Corrigan. I have cops up there. There was officers up there tonight, and there is just a steady stream of cars flowing off of Corrigan, making the right. They can't even keep up with it. Same on Somerset, and same on Bishops. The no access to Hill Street signage will have to be placed at multiple locations to alert drivers. Ox pasture in First Neck, ox pasture in Halsey Neck, ox pasture in Captain's Neck, Halsey Neck in Great Plains, Halsey Neck in Captain's Neck, Halsey Neck in Boysen, Captain's Neck in Great Plains, and Captain's Neck in Boysen. There would also have to be no left turn signage placed at different locations throughout Captain's Neck Lane and Lee Avenue. So essentially, if this is put into effect or these signs go up, you'd be forcing cars to make a right turn onto Hill Street from Captain's Neck and Lee Avenue. These are cars that want to go west and they want to avoid County Road 39 for obvious reasons. I don't have to tell anybody what those reasons are. Those vehicles who make the right turn onto Hill Street will then do a U-turn on Hill Street to go west. The U-turns that will occur on Hill Street will create more of a traffic hazard and an unsafe condition that will increase the likelihood of accidents on Hill Street. It is extremely dangerous and will back traffic up even more on Hill Street. We saw it happen back in 2022 when we did the traffic pilot program for 4 weeks. My officers saw frustrated drivers recklessly do U-turns on Hill Street, or they would turn into Enstein's gas station, causing cars on Hill Street to stop twice. One to let them turn left into the first driveway of Enstein's, and then a second time to allow them to come out and go right and west, backing up traffic. And this causes traffic to back up further on Hill Street, past Halsey Neck Lane, all the way down to the church. As far as the emergency response that the Lee Avenue residents are concerned with, we have trouble navigating down Hill Street every day when there's a call for service that requires us to respond with our lights and sirens. We battle traffic conditions everywhere throughout this village. Every emergency responder does. Residents are saying that making a left turn onto Hill Street is dangerous during rush hour. I agree. It's just as dangerous on Somerset, Bishops, and Corrigan when people come up to those intersections at Hill Street and realize they can't make the right. Those individuals who choose to obey the law make the left. Those vehicles actually have to inch out into the lane of travel and wait to make sure no eastbound traffic is coming before they make that left. It's very dangerous at Bishops and Corrigan because they have no line of sight and they can't see eastbound traffic. In my opinion, this is equally more dangerous, and this is based on what I've seen out there and what the feedback I get from my officers. What will happen if these left turn restrictions are put into effect on Lee Avenue and Captain's Neck? The problem will be pushed to Halsey Neck Lane. I'm telling you that's going to happen. How is it any less dangerous making a left turn out of Halsey Neck Lane? Halsey Neck Lane is one of the very few streets that does not have a truck restriction on it. So you'll now have the trucks that are over 10,000 pounds and everybody else being directed to Halsey Neck Lane to make the left because they all want to go west. It is a volume issue. Waze and Google Maps still navigates its users through Somerset and does not indicate any of the restrictions on their app. When my officers stop the vehicles making those right turns, the driver shows the officer, this is the way they took me. So they're not even on Waze or Google. The one thing we can't control is the volume. No matter what we do, no matter what temporary sign or fix we put in place, it's the volume of vehicles. Until County Road 39 is dealt with, Southampton Village, along with every other municipality, is going to be plagued with traffic issues. I have written letters to our new legislator, Ann Welker, Ed Romaine, the DOT to try and get the traffic signal at McGee changed to have a delayed arrow to make the left onto 39 so traffic doesn't back up on Moses, to Armand, Halsey Street. And I've got no response, or I've gotten lip service that we can't add any more traffic signals, we can't add any more time. So what have we done for Lee Avenue? We've installed speed humps based on a traffic study. We also gave them a speed sign going southbound because they complained of speeding vehicles going southbound. So there is a traffic that reads the people's speed. And a stop sign was also placed at Lee Avenue and Ox Pasture. Possible suggestions I came up with that I can give to the board, keeping in mind that every suggestion is going to have a negative consequence somewhere else. I would do no parking on either side of Lee Avenue. The road is too narrow. It's just too narrow. Another thing to consider is, and it may not be popular, but maybe consider installing a traffic light at Hill and Lee Avenue. Maybe it's time to get the vehicles off of Lee faster. Another suggestion, but again, this is really not the best one, but it's make Lee Avenue one-way southbound. If we do that, we'll push the problem to Captain's Neck, which has more roads that filter into it, Ox Pasture, Great Plains, Boysen, and those residents will bear the brunt of Lee Avenue being one-way. Probably going to need a traffic study for all this. With respect to tickets, 41% of our tickets are written on the western end of the village. We're 7.2 square miles, right? But there's 55 street miles here in this village. And when you plan for patrol, you have to consider the street miles over the square mileage. This has been one of the busiest summers I've seen. My patrol officers are busy with calls every day. Some of them can take 20 minutes, others, 3 officers are tied up for 3 hours. Domestics, pet larcenies, dealing with our homeless population, and dealing with persons that have mental illness. These calls take time, and they require, at times, more than one person. Our crew unit is staffed with a sergeant and 2 officers. The duty sergeants have very good intentions every day when they assign a patrol officer to help supplement crew, especially in the problem areas. But those individuals can be redeployed at any moment for a call for service. 55 street miles, and 42% of our tickets are written on the western end. I receive complaints via telephone, through you, through email from other residents. We have speeding issues on Old Town Road, Meadow Lane, Herrick Road, Wickapog, Powell Avenue, Elm Street, Little Plains, to name a few. Stop sign issues, Meeting House in Little Plains, South Main and Toilsome, Elm and Pelletreau, David White's and Pulaski, West Prospect and Henry, Halsey and Armand. I mean, I could go on. We're focusing our energy, to one area, and it's not fair to the 55 street miles that we have to patrol and the other issues that we have in other places. So I don't recommend the left turn restriction for these reasons, and I stand by that. Is there any
Does anyone have any
questions?
questions? One idea I wanted to run by you, and that is, again, the issue of the contractors that are parked on streets in the village, especially the narrow streets. There are many times where I've gotten, again, feedback from residents, and I've experienced myself, where you actually are doing a slalom down the street because you got someone who's parked here, someone who's parked there, and you're sort of having to do this, and then there's oncoming traffic the other way. It becomes very dangerous and really not the way the village residential streets are supposed to operate. So I did get a suggestion from someone, and this was a European idea that they have, that on even days, cars must park on the east or south side of the street, depending on which way the streets are running. And then on odd days, cars must park on the west or north side of the street. So that, again, you have uniform contractors or landscape people all on one side, so it's not the slalom course that's created by vehicles parked on either side. So I wanted to run that by you and see what you think of that idea. I know you said no parking on Lee,
Right.
because it's very narrow, but what do you think of this idea? I mean, I'm thinking of even, First Neck, South Main Street. There are broad streets where we have the same issue because, again, when you have the cars that are taking up spaces, it becomes
Impassable.
Yeah. So, what do you think of this idea of trying to have east side and south side are even days of the week? Parking can be on the west and north side on odd days of the week.
If I could just magnify that a little bit, I have a suggestion from a resident based on their experience at their community down in Florida, that the community has mandated that anybody doing work on the property must park their vehicles on the
Right.
property,
Right.
not on the street.
Right.
And because there's a limited amount of space, that might make the contractors carpool. So instead of bringing 5 cars to the site, they bring fewer ones because there won't be place to put them all. And I realize that's a fairly draconian measure, but it is being done at another community down in Florida.
The length of a landscaping truck with a trailer.
You can't fit that in the driveway.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say some of the landscapers now, they always have a trailer behind them, in some of the driveways, as you know, in the village, they're not that large, and you can't get the whole thing into the driveway, so they end up parking on the street. But I think if we at least had the cars on one side or the other, rather than both at the same time, it might alleviate some of the difficulty. And by switching it back and forth, you're not putting all the burden on one side of the street.
Yeah, I think
Everyone
it's,
gets to share it equally.
I think it's a good concept. I think it's going to be hard to.
Well, it's going to take a lot of
Implement.
education.
Yeah,
And signs.
And signs, but once the contractors and the landscapers get it, I think they'll understand that this is a rule in the village of Southampton. I don't know, Ed or Len or Robin, do you have anything
I
that you'd
think
like to
that's a
add?
good idea, but instead of doing alternate, which means a lot of signs and
Yeah.
watching and see
Yeah.
what day is it, just make one side of the street no parking.
But see, the only problem with that was, then one side gets all the parking and the other side doesn't get any parking.
So why is that a problem?
You would rather live on the side with no parking.
I just
Now
wanted
you're
to
gonna make both sides unhappy.
But everyone should share the burden. So that's why I thought this concept, it was actually used in Europe, where they switch it based on the odd or even days. Anyway, it's just an idea that I think is worth thinking about, because I have had many complaints this summer about dodging contractor vehicles on the streets in the village. And that's just, it's not the way these streets were meant to be used.
I do think and agree with my trustee Stevenson that we should explore requesting that as many commercial vehicles to go on the property, because as we all drive around, there are many cases where they would fit on the property. So I think that's one thing we should look at a little bit further. And then perhaps, of course, these ideas are wonderful. Maybe we can do like a small 2-week pilot program to see how it flows as a pilot program. And then, of course, we have to open this up for our residents to comment on. But we are all trying, and we do welcome, opinions of our residents as well. Thank you.
And so when you say request, because I'm not sure we can single out landscapers or workers as opposed to everybody else parking on the street. So you can't make a law that says everybody can park on the street except the contractors.
Oh, well,
So that is
No, but I think we can tell contractors when they're working on a project, they should be on the property.
Okay.
And then if they're parking where there is a no parking sign, the police can
Right.
give them a ticket.
No, that's different. If
Yeah, no, I understand. I'm just saying that, yeah. But I think this gentleman wanted to speak. Could you come to the microphone, sir? Yeah, please, and state your name and address.
Sure. Ken Weinstein, 111 Fox Hollow. Is there a prohibition on early start for landscapers and contractors in the village?
Yeah, they're on, during the week, they're not supposed to start before 8, and on Saturdays not before 9, and Sundays there's to be no contractors.
Yeah, see, the fact is that they have limited hours. So
Correct.
that's why they jam up in the evening for the trade parade. So if you basically start them earlier, since you have sunlight, while everybody would not like that because of the noise.
Well, exactly.
That would mitigate some of the
That's
traffic
usually
issues.
what we get, is if someone is starting on someone's property at 6:37 in the morning, they don't want to be awakened by hearing whatever is going on. So
You got time and you got vehicles.
I get it. I get it. And there's a peak volume time. I get it. It's. I don't know how to solve all these problems.
Well, if you did, you probably wouldn't be here.
Anyway.
May I, Eileen, thank you for bringing some things more clear to my attention, and as I was saying, as a request. But I think I was also thinking about when we have new construction going on, we could possibly ask that the vehicles that are being used to please try to go on the property as opposed to on
100%
the
we
street.
can ask.
Yes. I know Chris Talbot tries to do that.
Yeah, the words were asked.
And the
You did
problem
say
is
that.
some of these
I
homes,
was
though,
just
they
pointing
have
out.
literally
Request.
like, 30 vehicles. And of course,
Yeah.
30 vehicles are not going to fit even on a large piece of property,
Right.
just depending on the state of the
Right.
work.
Right. Well, we're all trying here together.
Anyway, thank you, Chief Anyone else have any other comments here? Any other comments? Otherwise, we're going to go to public comment. So we will open for, oh, sorry, you have someone on Zoom, Sage. Wow, I didn't even ask this time. Of course, someone's there. It's Murphy's Law. Who's on, Sage?
Steve Markov.
Okay. Oh, he's the one who wrote one of the letters from Lee Avenue. Okay, thank you. Mr. Markov, are you there?
He's coming in now.
Okay.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Marco, Steve, but we just can't see you. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, hi, thank you. Steve Marco, 121 Lee Avenue. Yes, I am one of the authors of the letters. You know, I've heard a couple of comments about sharing the burden, which I think is a very relevant comment, and I think one that most on Lee Avenue would say is not being honored in this situation. I understand the police chief's concerns. We do understand that there is a growing police force, and so enforcement will hopefully become an easier task for the force. As we look at trying to solve the problem, I guess my question to the chief is, how do we work with you if you are not in support of reinstating the no left turn? Some of those other recommendations you shared could be solutions. We don't really experience an issue of traffic being parked as the challenge. The fact is we actually have drivers driving both northbound and the southbound lane toward Hill Street. So it's not that there are cars obstructing them, there are cars in both lanes heading toward Hill Street. So it's a bigger issue, it's a safety issue. A biker coming out of their driveway could absolutely be hit by a car heading in the wrong direction. So how do we work with you to find a solution that can be implemented, somewhat enforced, in a timely manner? Secondly, I just wanted to speak to the issue of Waze that the police chief mentioned. We have been in touch with Waze and with Google Maps. They do state that they will institute restrictions, so perhaps on Bishops in Somerset and Oregon, those have not been adequately communicated to the apps. We do have regular communication, but they need some verification that there are restrictions. How can we work with you to ensure that we can communicate some of those to the apps as well? Because that is a large percentage of the problem. While some of this is habit of local employees and tradespeople, I will turn Waze on at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, coming home from Tate's, and it sends me down First Net to Ox Pasture to Lee, even when I can clearly see that Hill Street is open.
That's strange. No, I appreciate that. So, Steve, what I would suggest is that, and we tried to do this, but I didn't get enough people available at one time, but maybe to have a meeting perhaps next week with the chief. We'd had one last year. I'm happy to do that again. It can be either in Village Hall or over in the town Village Justice Court. I think that's where we met last year. And again, I would encourage you, Steve, to try and get as many of your neighbors to come with your ideas and your thoughts, and we can have a meeting with the chief, myself, and any others that would like to help address this issue, which is really the volume of cars and people disregarding village traffic laws. So would that be something that you would be open to?
Absolutely, I appreciate that.
Okay, so Chief, let's try and figure that out. Okay, thank you, Steve. Jay, you want to come forward? Sorry.
Yes.
Thank you, Steve, for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay.
J.D. Singh, resident of the village. I think we really need to look into video traffic tickets. And the history there is actually positive. It's been legal in New York State since 1992. I believe the village or the municipality has to do some sort of compliance and
Yeah, we would need a We would need an act of the state legislature. There are some pending right now.
Yeah,
But it's
We
it's
actually-
way more complicated. It's not something we can do on our own.
we can't do it unilaterally.
No, I
Yeah.
understand, but I mean, there are many villages
Yep.
that do it.
Yep.
So it's doable in New York.
Yes.
And clearly, the problem here is severe enough that I think we can't just say we can't do this anymore.
Right.
Because the statistics are actually very compelling. After the first video ticket, 50% of the people never, do a second infraction.
Right.
After 2 tickets, it jumps up to 80%.
Right.
So I think that you would find that maybe people would stop utilizing some of these streets if they realized that a week and a half later, they were getting a series of traffic tickets in the mail, $50 to $150 a pop. There are certainly people who will ignore it, but I think that the problem is severe enough. There's just no way that you can man all of these hot points around the village. And, I'm in an office on the second floor just across the street, and I watch between 15 and 30 U-turns a day here on Main Street. And, I've almost had my door taken off by someone who was doing a U-turn in front of Herrick Hardware to get a parking space in front of Le Charlot. So I think that we need to use these procedures to show people that you need to obey traffic out here. I think a lot of people feel like they're in the country, they're on vacation, let's have fun. We really have an obligation to safety. So I think this would help, and I would love you to at least look into it. I know it will not be easy, but we've got to start trying some different things.
So actually, I appreciate that, Jay. In fact, I did work with the mayor of the village of East Hampton earlier this year to get legislation in Albany for stop sign cameras. Fred Thiel was very helpful and proposed legislation. I did not. Well, we tried to get someone on the Senate side. It got too late. It was at the end of the session in Albany, so we did not make it this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I am working with the mayors here on the South Fork. Jerry Larson in East Hampton has become a big ally, and we will work again to get that legislation through Albany so that we will have the ability to have traffic cameras in the village, and possibly speeding cameras as well. So we again, I tried to do it this year. We unfortunately couldn't get someone on the Senate side to get that in time. But we will work on that, next season. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. I also would like to say that I think we're all in the same vein here, but I'm going to call upon the chief. I'm sorry if I'm putting you on the spot here, but some time ago, I think last year, I had a conversation with Lieutenant Wetter, and you can explain, Chief, though they are wonderful ideas, as Eileen says, there has to be certain things enforced that it can be, it has to be viewed by an officer, so on and so forth, for it to be enforced. We're all in the same vein, but she's just going to tell you some of the legalities, and thank you.
No problem. So the mayor's correct with the state legislation to get, cameras, enforcement cameras. But software for the turn restrictions, the red light cameras in the county, there's software for that. I did research just right turn restrictions because that's the issues here. It hasn't been written yet. It's not, the technology isn't there yet. So when it does come, though, you have to remember that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the local courts can't hear the cases when it's a ticket being issued electronically. Mm-hmm. So you have to create a whole different administrative court. And the police officers have to sit, we have it's similar to the bus patrol program that we have right now. We view the bus patrol camera and, we're able to say, yeah, this car went past the school bus while the stop sign was out. We approve it. The problem is, in this country, you still have the right to face your accuser, and the accuser is a camera. So they can't get cross-examined. Am I correct?
There is some debate about whether a town or a village court can hear these cases. I know Southampton Town and East Hampton Town were both looking into creating an administrative court, which is not as hampered by those rules.
The other thing too is you would have to set up a whole new process for people who wanted to fight the ticket. And these are for people that want to fight the ticket. Some people are just going to pay it because it's easier, like you said. The other thing too is, the cameras, they're going to cost money. Storage costs money. There's no discretion. There's absolutely no discretion. So, if, firemen or Jay, if you run a stop sign, there's no discretion. So if you want to fight the ticket, there would have to be another process in place to fight that ticket. So it's just, the technology is not there for certain things. For certain things it is. Speed, stop signs, hopefully.
No, they haven't. Yeah.
And the right turn on red. If that helps.
Yes, thank you, Chief.
Okay.
And I just want to let you know, Jay, that we're all in the same vein, but we just have to have certain things in place. So thank you both. Thank you both.
Sir, please come forward.
Ken Weinstein, 2 comments. One is our HOA in Florida, they do it by month. So you've got 12 months, 6 months.
Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you.
So that way it's less confusing.
Right, yeah.
Second, I just wanted to ask on what's the status, I think it's Johnson Controls doing an energy survey, or I forget who the contractor is, but what's happening? Because they still have the same crappy street light shining into my second floor bedroom.
Really? Well, that we'll have to address to Steve Phillips. Yeah, tell me where you are again, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't get your address.
111 Fox Hollow.
111 Fox Hollow.
Have they completed their study?
Yeah, and then in fact, I was going to talk in the closing remarks that we're moving right along with the installation of the solar panels at behind the ambulance barn on Windmill Lane. It's actually become quite extensive. But the point of that is that all of the ambulance barn and police department headquarters will be now solar powered. And we'll be creating a zero carbon footprint, and will obviously over time save the village quite a lot of money, because we will be generating the electricity to power those buildings which operate 24/7.
Yeah, the reason I ask is I was here during the presentation by the contractor. I think at the time the contract was signed, and he said they were also going to review all the street lighting and modernize all the street lighting.
They have been changing them all to LED. Yeah, no, and actually I think they've completed that. But obviously we're going to address the one on your street that you don't like.
Well, the beehive style doesn't prevent upward glow.
That's correct. That's correct. So we can put something in there, because the new lights that I had installed on North Sea Road all have a
baffle.
A baffle at the top, so the light is not to go up and help for dark skies. So it only reflects the light down.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. But we'll address that. Please come forward, Sheila. You got to come up to the mic. No, you got to come up to the mic. Otherwise, you're not on the tape.
I just want to comment that the case of a street light shining into someone's home is covered under the dark sky legislation that this village has in place.
Right.
And that is illegal. Has nothing to do, LED is good, and the amount of wattage and the color thing, I forgot what it's called, has that to do, but it cannot shine into someone's house.
Right, and I think actually we addressed that on Cameron Street for Christine Whitker, who's here. I think we solved that. Yes, am I right, Christine? Paintbrush. I think a paintbrush solved her issue. But we will go and look at 111 Fox Hollow and the light that's outside of your home. Okay? All right, thank you, sir. Anyone else would like to be heard? Sage, is there anyone on Zoom? No? Okay. Well, if anyone, sorry, did you want to say something else?
The public comments.
We're going to start that next.
No. I was just opening it for public comment to the whole audience now. Yeah. Is there anyone that else wants to come forward? Was there a list that was
So I have
generated?
3 people.
Oh,
on
I'm
the
sorry.
list.
Well, then you read the list, please. I didn't
Peter?
realize.
Go ahead, sir. Just state your name and address.
Hi, everyone. My name is Peter Yovanich. My address is 49 Palacho Street. Chief, thanks for being here, because my comment here actually kind of relates to what you've already discussed. My house is on Palacho Street, which is on the east side of the village. So unlike the issues that the chief talked about on the west side, we don't have an issue regarding standstill traffic trying to get out of the village post-construction hours trying to go west. We have a speeding issue on what you would call, Mayor, a slalom course, a street that has construction all over the place, very narrow. And I'm here today representing my wife and I have been a village taxpayer for over 10 years now. I've actually tried to take up this specific issue on my street for over 3 years. I've tried to speak with the former village administrator, village mayor, highway department, but only today when I spoke to Kathy in the clerk's office did she address and let me know that this is the right forum.
Yeah.
So I probably wasted 3 years. Hopefully today we can come to something that's, easily understood, easily acceptable. So let me get started. And I actually have some of my neighbors on Zoom who will join and also kind of speak also, but I'll try to be as quick as possible. So, what I'm asking for today is for the village to take a look at a resolution for, I guess, a notice of a public hearing to amend the code for a three-way stop sign at the intersection of Pelletreau and Woolley Street. Trustee Stevenson should be familiar with this intersection because I know he lives in that area and he's probably familiar with the blind turn that occurs there. But for everyone else that's not aware, Pelletreau Street is on the east side of the village and the train station. It's the first street that you encounter that actually cuts through all the way when you're going north on Elm Street. Yeah. And, there are 2 other streets before that, but as the chief said, Pelletreau is a throughway that connects you from Elm to David's White.
Are you closer to which end of Pelletreau?
I'm closer to the Elm side of it. I'm probably 6 or 7 houses in. I know between Elm and North Woolley, which is 3/4 of the street, I already know of 11 children under the age of 5 years old, right? So that street is interesting because David White's takes you across the highway, out of the village to go east, to go north, and then if you want to go to the industrial park in Powell, that's where all the contracts are going throughout the day. Yeah. So we have an issue of speeding across from that perspective, and God forbid if one of these children that are going across the street trying to see their friends with all of the construction, you literally cannot see around the trucks, right? If any of you want to come have a cup of coffee on my porch, you'll notice that you literally cannot see pulling in or out of the driveway. So I'm going to read a letter that myself and 8 other neighbors signed, and then from there I'll take a pause. So dear members of the Board of Trustees, we, the undersigned Southampton residents, write to respectfully request the installation of a three-way stop sign at the intersection of Woolley Street and Pelletreau Street. While there is currently a stop sign on Woolley Street at Pelletreau Street, that's only 1, not 3, traffic on Pelletreau Street has no requirement to stop. The situation has raised significant safety concerns for our community for the following reasons. 1, increased traffic and speeding on Pelletreau Street, which lacks sidewalks. Pelletreau Street has become a busy thoroughfare, particularly with at least one large-scale construction project underway, 47 Pelletreau. The presence of large trucks and other fast-moving vehicles has increased, posing a potential hazard risk to residents, especially those walking or biking in the area. Neighborhood residents have frequently observed cars and trucks traveling at dangerous and unlawful speeds. Because Pelletreau Street has no sidewalks, pedestrians are forced to walk along the street, placing them at greater risk from passing vehicles. Point number 2, small children are at risk. The neighborhood surrounding the Pelletreau-Woolley intersection is home to many small children who often play outdoors and travel on or around Pelletreau Street. The lack of adequate traffic control measures places these young residents in danger and increases the prospect of a serious accident. Point 3, three-way stops have been installed at comparable village locations. There is currently a three-way stop sign at the corner of Armand Street and Halsey Street, and an intersection and a street, Halsey Street, which also has speed bumps, which the chief referenced, and a pedestrian sidewalk, unlike Pelletreau Street. The corner of the nearby, in addition to that, there is an intersection of Willis and Willow Ave, right, which is across from the highway department. There's also a three-way stop sign, and then one of the radar detector speed kind of warning flashes that the chief referenced. In addition, there's also a three-way stop sign on West Prospect and Halsey, which is also a cut through on the north side going west, which has similar traffic patterns to Pelletreau Street, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Fruitless requests to the village since 2021. Neighborhood residents have requested.
I was not the mayor then.
So, fine. So for the foregoing reasons, we urge the Board of Trustees to prioritize the safety and security of our community and take immediate action to approve the installation of a three-way stop sign at the corner of Woolley and Pelletreau Street, signed by the residents of these homes: 49 Pelletreau Street, 175 Woolley Street, 27 Pelletreau Street, 162 Woolley Street, 41 Pelletreau Street, 30 Pelletreau Street, 20 Pelletreau Street, 41 Pelletreau Street, 111 Pelletreau Street, and 19 Pelletreau Street.
We appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much. Did you say that some of your neighbors are on Zoom?
They are on Zoom.
Okay, so Sage, would you see who you could let in there, please? Thank you. And Chief, it's good that you're here. You can hear all this too. We can, I think, VHB is going to be busy. Okay, Sage. I see you've got somebody there. Hello, sir. Could you state your name and address, please?
Hi there. This is Keith Nunziata, and I'm at 27 Pelletro. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Excellent.
Great. Well, thank you all for taking the time. Thank you, trustees, for hearing our request, and thank you to my fellow residents as well. I'll keep it pretty brief. I just wanted to make four quick points. I guess first, for context, I'm at 27 Pelletro with my wife, Ivy, and we have 3 of the 11 kids that Peter referenced. So certainly interested in this topic. Really, just wanted to make four quick points. I think number one, speeding and traffic has gotten worse on Pelletro. Again, would welcome any of you all to come visit. You won't have to stay long to see folks speeding, unfortunately. And it's not 27 in a 25 zone type of speeding. You'll see folks going 40 miles per hour, which is just not safe with no sidewalk and a lot of kids. So that's point number one. There's definitely a speeding problem. Point number two, I think given some of the risks that Peter and my fellow residents describe, unfortunately, it's only a matter of time until there's an accident, whether that's, a car accident or something worse. And so this is just, I think, essential preventative action to take before something happens. Point number three, I think essentially all of the residents nearby this proposed stop sign, want the stop sign. We've collected a lot of signatures. I know there's a couple other residents who are interested in signing, but just couldn't sign this morning. But it's not a controversial request. I think everyone in the vicinity really thinks this is a good idea. And then point number four, it's really not a cost to anyone else. It's not an unbearable cost for folks, to take 2 seconds to stop on a busy residential street. And so, yeah, I hope you'll consider the request, and happy to answer any questions, but would love for this to move forward.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you coming on, and again, appreciate you being available tonight to speak to us.
Great, of course, happy to do it. Thank you.
Thanks. Sage, do we have more?
Yep.
Okay. Hello, sir. We can see you.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Could you just state your name and address, please?
Sure, Andrew Steinman at 175 Bully.
Okay.
We are 175 Bully, right at the corner of Bully and Pelletro. And so the cars that really approach their maximum speed are going right by our house. And we have a 6-year-old daughter. We are trying to teach her how to cross safely, but it is extremely difficult because you really cannot see the cars approaching from each direction. I mean, I cross the street with her. I hold her hand tightly and look very carefully, but I can say there have been some, even when I'm there, like very close calls when we're attempting to cross that street. I think having the stop sign will force people to traverse that stretch much slower, hopefully. I really do think it is a very dangerous situation for pedestrians and particularly the kids that really has to be addressed. And we've been talking about since we moved in, 4 years ago, what a dangerous situation it is. I'm happy that Peter's finally here for us raising it tonight. I think you guys look into it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate you being available to speak to us. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Sage, do you have another one? Okay.
Hello?
Yes, you're on, ma'am. Although you're
great.
there you go. Perfect. Okay.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Thea Yonganich. I'm Peter's wife. I live at 49 Pelletreau. And
Who have you got with you?
oh, this is one of the, so I also have 3 children. This is my youngest and one of the many kids on Pelletreau Street. And I just want to thank you all for considering this and also say one of the reasons we love living in the village is the community feel. And if you can imagine, on our street with so many kids the same age, the ideal would be for them to be able to run freely around, go from house to house, and see their friends easily all the time. And that's how I grew up, at least in my neighborhood. And now when my daughter wants to cross the street to go to her friend's house, it's like, 60 feet? I shouldn't feel nervous having her do that. And I just think, if we can get this to happen, like Keith said, it's only a matter of time before someone is rushing to get to work, someone is rushing to get a job, and doesn't see a 4-year-old, running over to see her best friend. So I think we would all sleep better at night, and it would just really help the kids have the childhood that they deserve too. So I thank you for hearing us all today.
No, thank you. We're glad you could join us, and thank you for bringing the youngest along as well.
Yeah, she's ready for bed.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate your time. Thank you, ma'am.
That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Mackie, please come forward. Good night.
Good evening, Mackie Finnerty, Woolley Street. I didn't know about this tonight, but I want to tell you, I agree with them 100%. When we moved here about 24 years ago, after being almost killed at that same intersection like 3 times in a row, I went down to the village and told them about the problem there. And they said, we'll go see the code enforcement guy. So I called him, and he said, okay, I'll meet you at the corner. Meet you at the corner. There's a huge hedge there. So you come down Woolley, you can't see anybody coming down Pelletreau. Yeah. I'm sure you know that. So you have to get out into this speeding traffic you're talking about to see it. And people in the village said, there's a law.
There's a law that the hedges have to be cut back. Yes, so we should actually have.
He said, you can see fine. There's nothing the matter with the view here. And it's not cut down at all. It's not cut down to the point, which I think would help a lot. That's one issue. But they're right. It's really dangerous there to the point that I avoid the street. Luckily, then I'll go down Van Brunt or go down John to get in that direction, or Halsey in the other direction. Because it really is scary between the trucks and the speeding and the refusal to cut the hedge. And it's great to have all these young families living in it. So it's been a huge problem ignored by the village forever. And I hope you'll listen to all these people and do something about it.
No, thank you. Thank you for bringing to my attention also the hedge on the corner, because I can have code enforcement go out and look at that, because there is a section of the code that talks about where hedges can be on street corners like that. So we can definitely look at that.
Just for my education, what's the timeline now for next steps? What happens after this?
Yeah, so we would have to talk to our traffic engineer just to have them come look at it.
Yep.
And then if the recommendation is to go forward, we have to hold a public hearing.
Okay.
Which you're welcome to come back to.
Okay.
And then we would, at the next meeting, be able to adopt a law.
Okay. So maybe I'll speak to the clerk and just see what the scheduling is. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Thank you. All these people were given lots of business to, as I said, VHB, but that's good. All right. Anyone else? Sorry.
Next, we have David Rung.
David Rung, 85 Pleasant Lane. During the recent campaign, a number of village residents expressed their disgust over the fact that Trustee Aresta was costing village taxpayers over $60,000 in her salary and benefits. This is coupled with her vote to not eliminate post-service lifetime health care benefits, her vote imposing the shameful double-dipping opt-out payments, and her vote to give herself a non-competitive raise. In her 2020 campaign, she advocated for eliminating the lifetime benefits. But once she was elected, she reneged on that pledge. Mr. Zanotti, your contention that this high level of compensation is necessary to attract candidates is not supported by the facts. In this year's election, two trustee candidates pledged to eliminate post-service benefits. In last year's election, one of the candidates for mayor and two trustee candidates pledged to eliminate these benefits. Everyone also thought that the present mayor agreed to eliminate post-service lifetime benefits, but apparently he weasel-worded his way out of this pledge. Sagaponack and other village trustees serve with zero compensation. School board members serve without compensation. Many qualified people are willing to serve in these volunteer, part-time positions because they care about their communities more than they care about their own greed and self-interest. Next June, voters will decide whether they want candidates who care about other residents, who respect other residents, and who want residents to be treated fairly, or whether they want candidates who primarily care about their own greed and self-interest. This compensation issue is not going away unless you decide to correct what you did last fall and actually comply with the recommendations of your own survey. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rung. Anybody else?
Sheila Pfeiffer.
Good evening, everyone. Sheila Pfeiffer, Hildreth Street. Many of you will remember that I spoke last month at this meeting in regard to the cutting of mature trees on private property. We all know that regulation of tree cutting on private land is an extremely delicate and difficult issue to undertake. It is complex, sensitive, and challenging. Balancing the rights of individual owners with the common good of the whole community is a task for Solomon. But we all also know by now that trees stabilize the soil, control water pollution by preventing soil erosion and flooding, absorb air pollution, provide us with oxygen, yield advantageous microclimatic effects and cooling shade, have an intrinsic aesthetic quality which promotes serenity and enhances the bucolic nature of our village. They offer a natural barrier to noise and provide a valuable habitat for wildlife. Additionally, trees are what is called a carbon sink, sequestering twice as much carbon dioxide as they emit, making them important mitigators of climate change. The removal of a mature tree deprives all segments of our community of all these benefits, not just the individual owner. The health, welfare, and long-term safety, in terms of the effects of climate change, of village residents are directly linked with preserving our trees. Since speaking at the last village board meeting, I have also attended 2 planning commission meetings. The commission is talking about the subject, but as yet has not recommended any plan of action for tackling this issue. I have also written 2 emails to the chair of the ARB in regard to how that land use board takes trees into consideration when making decisions, but have not received any reply. Surely, preserving trees should be part of the ARB's mandate in order to preserve the character of the village. I would respectfully request tonight that the Board of Trustees discuss how we can develop a resolution as a community that will provide a roadmap for protecting this resource, which is virtually irreplaceable. I ask that you please establish a committee or delegate an existing one to work on this issue diligently and urgently. Thank you.
Mackey, sorry.
Mackie Finnerty, Wally Street again. I think it's probably at least 15 years ago and 4 mayors ago under Mark Epley that the SAVE committee studied this extensively. We looked up all the villages in the whole United States that had laws about this. We looked at all of them about how relevant they would be to our situation because they were all different sizes. Some of the very best were right on Long Island. And at that point, which as I said was probably about 15 years ago, it had already been in force like 10 years before that. So we called several of the mayors of these villages and asked them to discuss how successful it was it working, did you have any problems, what are the issues with the people. Generally, people were just very happy with how it had worked out, and there were fines about what people had done to stop destroying trees on their land. So we put together laws, taking what we thought were the very best part of the laws, and on our committee was a real estate person, a person very heavily involved in the environment. I'm a lawyer, and there were more people with a gardener. It was a pretty diverse group with bringing tons of experience to look at this. We thought it was a no-brainer. You know, we drew up the law, we presented it. There was a big presentation. We brought in expert witnesses, and more lawyers were hired. It was rewritten and rewritten and rewritten, and nothing ever happened. The landscapers came in force to say, don't tell us what to do. The homeowners came in force to say, don't tell us what, you can't tell us what to do with our land. That's the most absurd thing I've ever heard of. We tell you every day what to do with your land. How high your house can be, how wide it can be, how far it can be from the neighbor, how far it can be from the road, what you can do about this, that, and the other thing, how many parking spots you need. But we can't tell you what to do with a tree. The very essence, really, of the environment has been agreed that that's the thing that's likely to save us if we could get our act together about that. But about that, we can't talk. So that level of ignorance has been very, very frustrating. And I hope, again, I know there is a committee in the village again. And also the Planning Commission had, even before we worked on it, it was one of their top recommendations. We're talking the beginning of Mark Epley's administration. Anyway, now we are drowning in the environment, as you know, with very little time left. So I hope that a wiser board will do something about this. The other one is clear cutting. We've been begging for years in many groups. It breaks my heart just going down Main Street where absolute clear cutting is allowed, as though they'll take out every blade of grass. You'll see these magnificent houses that were gorgeously landscaped, and they will actually kill the grass. So everything is dirt, as though we don't want anything green in our village. And then they'll replace it with other things that aren't so good. Why is that allowed? That doesn't make any sense to me. And the architect said, well, we have to be free to put everything wherever we want to. No, you're not free to put everything wherever you want to now, let alone take down fabulous old trees, sometimes hundreds of years old, just cut down because I want a little something different there. We really have to take, and that's not a hard one. I mean, lots of people have that, and we can do it. And it's for a different reason, but in Southampton town, they have a law. But it has to do with protecting the aquifer, so making sure that the vegetation is above the aquifer. But it's extremely well written, and we tried to apply that, but we didn't get anywhere. So I hope you look at it. As I say, we're drowning in the environment, and tonight it brought to mind on the architectural things that you were talking about tonight, the housing situations, and they were saying we left 25% open space. What are you doing with that open space? They use the word lawns. I think anybody who reads anything about the environment knows that they're trying to get people to cut back on their lawns, put in more environmentally friendly things, put in more pollinators. Still beautiful, still you can walk around, you can play, you can leave open spaces for kids to play and to play games and so on. But take a look, when you're looking at these things, the 25% of those pieces of land is quite a lot. Couldn't some of it be put in more environmentally friendly things than lawns? Because the trouble we know with lawns is they use a lot of water, And if you're going to keep your perfect lawn, it's fertilized to death over and over. All that, as you know, is running is what's killing Lake Aqua from all the houses running. And we know that. And we've known that forever. Nothing is done about it. Nothing. So for you to say, well, it's wonderful to see these architects went 25%, you're lucky. That's so generous. Well, it is. It's generous. It's a generous, I think is too generous a word, but it's important to have the 25%. It's very important. But how about also thinking about what you're going to do with that 25%? So certainly there are laws around talking about that, about what goes into that so-called open space, because often it can be hard patios, it can be just all kinds of stuff where the rain can't get in that are really not good for the environment. Not that I'm against patios, I love patios, but how big a patio do you need? You know, how much hard surfaces do you need? How hard surface does your driveway have to be? Right. All those things I hope that you will think about, because it is a different time and we're really pretty desperate to make some changes here. So there were a lot of good ideas here tonight, and I hear a lot of good things about the environment that people are caring about. We need to keep it up and consider everything. All right?
Thank you,
for your
Maggie.
time.
Thank you. I would just mention, Maggie, that actually in part of the comprehensive plan laws that we've been implementing since the comprehensive plan came out, one of them was a percentage that has to be green space as opposed to hardscape on residential properties. And so we did institute that. So that is now in place as of a few months ago. So
that's a start.
That's a start.
And we talked about the Fowler property. That's a lot of land we're talking about.
Yep.
To put it all in lawn and fertilizer. And
No. They
doing
want to
with that.
continue. Just
Farming.
speaking about that, they want to continue to do the farming that they do down there
It
already.
would all be farming.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Michelle, did you want to say anything, because you're on the Planning Commission, and I know the Planning Commission is actually working on this very issue about trees and clear cutting them.
The chair of the Planning Commission, Christian Picot, is very focused on it after successfully working on the problem of public trees over the past couple of years, and that's been very successful. The Planning Commission is working diligently on the subject of private trees, and you were there at the Planning Commission.
I was there, but I would say that my request today had to do with really seeing a plan for how this is going to get decided. When I was at that last meeting, the only plan was that I think, not you, Bill Andresen and Christian were going to meet with Mr. Talbot from the building department and just kind of get a feel for what's being done.
Correct.
But there was no decisive plan, and the board has not said this is how we're going to reach legislation. And I just want to add that the work that Mackie and those people did 10 years ago, you have those documents. I have them, so I know you have them. Legislation was written.
Well, don't always assume that I have them, because I don't know where they are.
Yeah. So you're correct. The Planning Commission has not come to any conclusion yet and has not made any recommendation yet. It's in process. You're correct. And your input is very valuable and appreciated.
I just want to make sure that there's...
Yeah.
I guess I just want to see action as well as talk. And I do think that the research was done 10 years ago or maybe more, but it was presented in 2016. That's the date on the resolution. So 8 years, but it was started before that. And
what happened to the resolution at that time? Because I have to say,
I don't know. Put in a drawer. I wasn't in town at that time.
Yeah.
I wasn't in the village.
Yeah.
I was with,
Yeah.
itinerating. But the point is, I'm not saying that very resolution needs to be enacted. Obviously, there needs to be more discussion, and there needs to be input from all the stakeholders.
Yeah.
And there will be a lot of differing opinions. We understand that. That's why I started out by saying we need Solomon here.
Yeah.
But I think that anyone who really cares about the culture and the values of this village doesn't want to see this kind of clear cutting and this kind of total disregard. If the ARB doesn't even take into consideration what kind of trees are on the property, I mean, that's part of preserving the appearance and the culture of the village as much as...
The ARB only has it in the historic district.
Okay, so that's why we need a different, whatever it is. But even that isn't being done.
No, I think that actually
Yeah. Well-
in the historic district, I know that they've, because I've heard some disgruntled homeowners who didn't like that they had to abide by what the.
Well, if I had
architectural
gotten an
review board was-
answer
was,
from the chair, I might have been able to know for sure.
Okay.
But I didn't get that answer, and I don't know for sure. But I'm just seeing that there are properties around that have been basically clear cut,
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
and that's distressing to a lot of people.
I agree.
I
I'm
didn't bring all my neighbors to come on, but next time I will do that.
No, that's very good. We appreciate it very much, Sheila. And again, Christian, you'll take back to the Planning Commission that we're expecting a recommendation sooner than later. And I think it would be wise if you got the legislation that was proposed, I guess, in 2016, if that's the correct date.
I think Christian has it.
So maybe, yeah, you can share it. No, you can't speak from there because we're losing stuff for the people at home.
Sheila, you were there when Mayor Irving intervened, right? And he said that has been tried, very much so. Let me finish. And he said it failed because it's impossible to force homeowners. It's just what he said. I don't know if it's true, but he said that they tried very hard and that legally it was not possible to prevent people from cutting trees on that properties. This is what Mayor Irving said. And then there were people who pushed back and said that even a property, you have two zones, one where you're allowed to build and one which are called the
setbacks.
The setbacks. And Christian's idea was within the setbacks, you may have legal ground to force homeowners to keep the trees that are on the setbacks. You don't have any legal grounds to keep the trees, even old trees, on the property where it's buildable. And so Christian's plan was to focus on the setbacks area where the village may have some legal standing. But I remember clearly Mayor Irving saying that they had tried really hard and failed at the time.
No, I appreciate that. And again, I think it's mostly the trees on the property lines that affect the neighbors where they get very upset. But I appreciate that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but it is legal in the state of New York to create legislation that restricts property owners from being able to cut trees down. That law was passed, I think it's in 1973, but it might have been 78, but it was a long time ago. And many municipalities on Long Island, and again, Mackey's committee did all this research, but Oyster Bay and Roslyn, and I don't know, I don't have the list with me, but lots and lots of them following that. And it took a while, but they did enact legislation that restricts the rights of private owners, if you want to call it that. Now, I understand, as I said, I understand it's delicate. Mayor Irving, the law was never passed. So the board that existed at that time took this resolution and put it in a drawer, as they say in legislative halls, and it was never seen again until, I decided to be a pain. So we're bringing it up again because a lot of people are concerned. It's not just me.
No, and I'm concerned as well.
And it doesn't have to be the same piece of legislation, but that's a place to start. And maybe tapping some of the wisdom from a few of the people that are still around from the committee.
Yeah.
And getting some of the stakeholders to come in and let's hear from the landscapers and the tree people.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, you can help do that at Planning Commission meetings. Okay. Do you have anyone else?
One more, sir. Christine?
Christine?
It's Christine Whitaker, Cameron Street. I was just going to say that on the speeding on Pelletreau, I noticed it looked like I was in quag. I thought I was in quag the last few months. There's just which was great because it was a speed that changes it was on South Main Street and it's on the west side of South Main. And what was interesting is they have them in quag where it says thank you, but it sort of gets your attention, and it shows what what your speed is. But I was thinking if something like that, as well as whatever the people on Pelletreau want, but something smaller sized, maybe just because it's a smaller street and a smaller, lower down or something.
Yeah.
You know, because in a way that's very high on South Main. But I was thinking, you know, if it were a little, well, something like that might be helpful as well, just as a deterrent. And the other thing I wondered is if those are linked to anybody. In other words, no, that's too bad.
No.
That's really too bad, because that would be kind of cool if you know, you got a notification that somebody was going 60.
Yeah.
Because, there are
Yeah.
a lot of streets where everybody speeds too much, and isn't the village speed 25?
Yes, except for certain roads that were designated as 30.
Okay, I was just going to say, because it just seems nobody knows it, because, I mean, they speed down my street, they speed down all day, hours of the day and night, and everywhere. I mean, everywhere I go, people are speeding and trying to cut you off, and it's really manners.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
manners. And then just on the trees, I was going to say the one thing that would be very unfortunate is if a homeowner has to go to the expense of paying for a survey to have a tree sited. You know, instead of just having something like the ARB has, that a couple committee members come and look at a tree, because you know, there's something to do with circumference size. I mean, because I had spent $12,000 on a tree that was silver maple that was rotting, and it was next to my neighbor's garage, and he wouldn't let me on the property, so I had to clear the whole back of the property to allow the people to come and work on it.
Mhm.
So there are instances like that where
No, sure.
you can't choose your neighbors.
Sure. Appreciate that. Thank you. Anyone else? Sage, anyone else?
No.
Okay. I think that does it then for public comment. So should we go to suggested resolutions? Please.
Okay, resolution number 1, resolve the claims for the warrant dated August 8th, 2024, totaling $485,10 warrant number A9, general. $277,456.50 warrant number H3, capital. $59,664.10 warrant number A10, payables, and $6,743.97 A11, utilities, and $4,250 warrant number T5, CS Trust are audited and approved. So moved. Is there a second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Number 2, resolve the reading of the minutes for the April 2024 Board of Trustee meetings are dispensed, accepted as filed by the village clerk, and the actions taken at those meetings are hereby ratified and approved. So moved. Is there a second?
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Resolution number 3, whereas in December 2023, the village entered into an agreement with Shalluf and Rogers Architects to prepare a plan and design for the restoration of the Southampton Historical Museum, and whereas the plans are complete and the village is in search of an appropriate contractor for the restoration project, and whereas the Board of Trustees previously authorized the publication of a notice to bidders for same, and whereas the village has determined that more time is needed to properly notice the bid, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees authorizes the village clerk to publish the attached notice to bidders in the next edition of the Southampton Press. That's your motion.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay. Whereas Chapter 116 of the Village Code authorizes the village to recoup from an applicant the cost of consulting fees generated by the land use boards of the village during the review of an application, and whereas the code provides the authorized amounts of those deposits as follows: 116-40.1 through 6, deposit amounts. The amount of the initial deposit for the various developments and/or applications covered by this chapter shall be $1,000. For any application before the Board of Trustees, Board of Zoning Appeals, or Planning Board for approval of a project, including any of the considerations as included in paragraph 1A above, with respect to applications brought before the Board of Architecture Review and Historic Preservation, BARHP, upon determining that a consultant as identified in paragraph 1A above will be needed. With respect to an application, BARHP is empowered to retain the same with all costs related to the consultant being recouped from the applicant. The amount of deposits described here may be changed from time to time by the resolution of the Board of Trustees. Emphasis added. And whereas the Board of Trustees board has been made aware that the initial deposit amounts for some of the boards are significantly less than the average expense for consultants on the applications, while for other boards the deposit exceeds the average cost. And whereas in an effort to require deposits that more accurately reflect the anticipated costs of consultants, including legal, for certain projects brought before the Board of Zoning Appeals, the Board of Architectural Review and Historic Preservation, BARHP, the Planning Board, and/or the Board of Trustees, when it is acting in a land use capacity, the Board of Trustees, with the assistance of the Village Planning Director, has updated the estimated costs of such consultants for the specific boards and application type. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the amount of the required deposit for applications before the Village Land Use Board shall be as follows. BARHP, Historic District and Landmarks only, $750. Planning Board, $1,500. Zoning Board, Dimensional Area Variances, Interpretations, and Spec Exceptions, $1,000. Zoning Board for Wetlands and/or Environmental Setback Variances, $2,500. And the Village Board of Trustees, TBD on case-by-case basis. And be it further resolved that nothing herein shall affect the discretion previously granted to the village planner to waive or reduce such initial deposits where he deems it appropriate, nor shall it relieve any applicant from its obligation under 116-41 through 3 to reimburse the village for any reasonable costs incurred by a land use boards for private consultation fees or other extraordinary expense in connection with the review of an application. I will make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
Number 5, whereas Beechwood Latch LLC filed an application with the village to convert a transient rooming house into a multifamily residential use. And whereas since the existing and proposed uses were both non-conforming in the Residence R20 zoning district, the application required approval from the Village of Southampton Zoning Board of Appeals. And whereas after extensive review, on July 26, 2018, the Zoning Board of Appeals granted an approval for the application with conditions, one of which required the payment of a park fee pursuant to Section 97-35B of the Village Code. And whereas thereafter Beechwood Latch LLC instituted a lawsuit against the village, arguing in part that the park fee could not be enforced because the village code authorizing same was not supported by New York State village law. And whereas the Nassau Supreme Court issued a decision in favor of Beechwood Latch LLC, thereby relieving them of paying any park fee to the village. And whereas the Village of Southampton has appealed the decision to the Second Department. And whereas while the appeal is still pending, the parties have tentatively agreed to resolve the dispute and end the litigation by agreeing to a park fee in the amount of $685,000 in full satisfaction of the litigation, subject to the approval of the Village Board of Trustees. And whereas the Village Board of Trustees believes it is in the public interest to settle this matter, now therefore be it resolved that the Board of Trustees authorizes the village attorneys to enter into a stipulation of settlement in the matter of Beechwood Latch LLC versus the Incorporated Village of Southampton et al., Suffolk County Supreme Court Index number 2309317, appellate docket number 2023-09317, with a provision requiring payment of the park fee of $685,000 within 30 days of execution. That's your motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the mayor to execute a contract with Source Municipal Solutions LLC for the purpose of preparing the Village of Southampton Employee Handbook at a cost not to exceed $8,075 to be paid from Trustees Special Projects A 1010.433.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Discussion.
Oh,
yeah. For a handbook, which is really valuable and useful for the village to have, wasn't this ever done before? I think it was already disbursed at one time with somebody else.
So it was never fully completed. There was a very draft that was produced, but it wasn't fully completed. So we were going to bring on again Sourced Municipal Solutions LLC to take that and then finalize it so that we can have it applicable.
I see.
But to your point, it is a tragedy that all of these years this village has not had an employee handbook.
Right.
So we're trying to correct that now.
Right.
What happened that it was never completed? It stayed as a draft.
I mean, it got quite far. I don't know if there were some legal issues with it or
Well,
what.
it really predated my time here, but there was a contract to get it done. It wasn't done to the satisfaction of the village, I guess. It wasn't completed. So we decided to move in another direction. That's all. And this was a reasonable cost. So that's why I think the village went this way.
Yeah, and obviously it just has to stand up to the scrutiny of the attorney and obviously also the CSEA and other union contracts. And so I think this will get us to a final position so that we can have an employee handbook.
Yeah, I think this was more focused on the municipal employee side of it, whereas the prior one really didn't take into account the rules about the municipality. They're very different from other employers and employees. So,
Well, there were several reasons why there was a delay on it, and one being that there were several times when the consultant had appointments that were not honored by the people that were asked to give their comments on going forward with the handbook. And it's actually was more than a handbook, because if we look back and see, there really is not one concise place of where all of our village policies and procedures are. And it is unfortunate that previous staff was not agreeable in keeping appointments with the consultant and asking certain things that had to come from people in those positions to move forward successfully. So we can certainly, talk further about that, but I feel as though it's unfortunate.
But the good news is we're going to finally get this thing done because it's needed.
It is needed, and it was something that the board supported me on doing this, and it is very important that we have policies and procedures in place so that, on both hands, so that our staff and our employees are aware of where they stand, and clear communication is the bridge of good relationship. And I'll end on that note.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. So we had a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay, thank you.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the Southampton Village Ocean Rescue to host a 5-mile swim challenge at Cooper's Beach on Saturday, August 17th, 2024, from 6:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Rain date is scheduled for Sunday, August 18th, 2024. Participants must depart Cooper's Beach at the conclusion of the event to ensure parking is available for season permit holders and daily guests. So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the beach event application for Crider Beach on Saturday, August 24, 2024 at 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. for 100 guests. Parking will be pre-coordinated and exception to parking letters will be conspicuously displayed on vehicles during the event.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Number 9, resolve the Board of Trustees approves the Little Lucy Canine Couture Boutique to host their 23rd annual Little Lucy Halloween Pet Parade on Saturday, October 26, 2024, 1 p.m. to 4 p.m. Festivities will include the Pet Parade on Job's Lane, followed by a festival at Agawam Park. 2 traffic control officers and Show Mobile are requested for assistance, and fees incurred will be paid by Little Lucy's of Southampton. Be it so moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Resolved, the Board of Trustees approves the save the date for the Southampton Artists Association to host its 25th annual Outdoor Art in the Park event in Agawam Park during the weekend of July 19th, 2025 to July 20th, 2025 from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. to include the setup date of Friday, July 18th, 2025 from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. DPW, and building maintenance will be notified to ensure the sprinkler system is deactivated during the event. I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Okay, great that they're getting way out ahead here. We're planning things for the end of July of 2025. Sure. And then we will go, well, I have to wait for him to come back. Chief and Michelle, you're doing really good sitting through the whole thing. Okay, no worries. So while we try to get everything on the agenda a few days in advance, there were a couple of items that were put on as late as today. So with that, I would like to make a motion to accept the supplemental agenda of 3 items to be added to this meeting. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Eileen?
Number 1, resolve that the Board of Trustees accepts the letter of resignation from Connor Spencer, a seasonal police officer, Southampton Village Police Department, effective August 8th, 2024. That's your motion.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Whereas the Southampton Village Board of Trustees previously engaged BFJ Planning to assist in developing recommendations for the Office Business OD and Hampton Road Office HRO zoning districts with the goal of creating workforce housing opportunities, and whereas at a public meeting of the Southampton Village Board held on July 23rd, 2024, the Village Board heard a presentation by Noah Levine, AICP of BFJ Planning, setting forth a proposal to create a special exception workforce housing use in certain zoning districts in the village, namely Office Business OD and Hampton Road Office HRO. And whereas the Village Board is interested in receiving feedback from the public on the proposal before moving forward with drafting legislation for consideration, now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Village Board hereby invites members of the public to attend the meeting of the Village Board on September 12, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the Village Meeting Room at Southampton Village Hall, located at 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York, 11968, to offer any comments either for or against the proposed special exception use for workforce housing presented by BFJ Planning. Copies of the workforce housing proposal are available in the office of the village clerk at Village Hall, Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 p.m. I will make the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you.
And number 3, whereas the village previously noticed a public hearing for August 8th, 2024 on a proposed special permit for a workforce housing development and resort hotel use at 71 Hill Street in the Village of Southampton pursuant to Section 116-5F of the Village Code of Southampton, and whereas the timing was such that the notice of public hearing was first published in the paper on August 1st, 2024, which resulted in less than the required 10-day notice to the public, and whereas a public hearing was opened and held on August 8th, 2024, and kept open for a continued hearing on September 12th, 2024, now therefore be it resolved that the village board hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held as a hybrid in-person Zoom meeting on September 12th, 2024 at 6 p.m. at the village meeting room at the Southampton Village Hall located at 23 Main Street, Southampton, New York, 11968, to hear any and all persons either for or against a proposed special permit for a workforce housing development and resort hotel use at 71 Hill Street in the Village of Southampton pursuant to 116-5F of the Village Code of Southampton. The property is further identified on the Suffolk County tax map as 0904 Section 6, Block 1, Lot 8, and located at the northeast corner of Hill Street and Viridian Way. That's your motion.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay. That was published in the paper, I believe, or will be this week.
This week,
So,
I think
yes.
Kathy's got that. Okay. Very good. With that, then, I think we've completed the work, so we will now go to comments from the board. We will start with Trustee Brown.
Good evening. I first want to thank all of our residents that came in this evening. There were some wonderful things that were brought up to our attention. I do like the conversation that came forth. I am very interested in seeing the draft that was put together reviewing a saving of shore trees. So I thank you for bringing that to the board's attention. I look forward to reviewing that. I thank our other residents that brought to our attentions a solution as far as safety and for considering a three-way stop sign, a pelletro. So that's what it's about, community engagement and collaboration coming together. So I thank the community and wish everyone a pleasant evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Brown. We will go to Trustee Simeoni.
Thank you. My first month on the job has been an interesting and rewarding experience where it has become clear to me how great our village employees are across all departments. I want to express my deep appreciation for their hard work and dedication, which truly makes our village a special place. In particular, my first visit with Stephen Phillips, Superintendent at DPW, I expressed the need for better signage on a dangerous 90-degree curve on Somerset. We went to visit the area, and in the matter of a couple of weeks, and with the approval of the mayor, the signs were made and visibly positioned in both directions. Needless to say, the residents on Somerset were very pleased. Now I'd like to provide a quick update on some of my liaison responsibilities. As a liaison at the Cultural Center, I attended a board meeting this past week. Unfortunately, due to inclement weather, the concert at the park had to be canceled. However, the weather is looking promising for next week, and I'm looking forward to the upcoming concert, which will feature Rhonda Bennett, a talented soul and jazz vocalist and songwriter. It should be a great event and encourage everyone to attend. Hopefully some people will listen to this. I also spent some time at the Justice Court and plan to spend more time there in the future. My goal is to help improve our justice system to better serve all village residents. As a liaison to the Safety Committee, I have had the opportunity to meet with Chief Hurto, and she has updated me on some new technology upgrades that we can implement to address speeding on local streets. I'm looking forward to working with her on this initiative further. Also, as you may all well know, I have pledged to donate my trustee salary to charitable causes. Thus, I am pleased to confirm that through Fidelity Charity, I have opened an account called Simeoni Community Benefit Fund and have deposited the full gross amount of my first paycheck to that account, from where I will be making my charitable contributions. Bill, on a different note, you have done so much to improve our roads and the Central Parking lot of this year. I mean, really excellent work. However, I would like to address an important issue that I believe many residents are looking for clarity. That's on Pond Lane. It's obvious to everyone that Pond Lane is in state of disrepair, with potholes now posing a safety hazard. I wanted to ask about your plans for repaving Pond Lane. One of my goals as a trustee is to see the repaving and repair of this road. Can we also include it in the general work that we do on the other roads?
Yes, in fact, you'll be pleased to know that I've already spoken to Steve Phillips about Pond Lane and repaving Pond Lane.
Right, excellent.
So you didn't even have to mention it. I'm already on it, so I appreciate
Great.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to bring it up.
No,
I haven't
that's very
heard
good.
anything
I
about
appreciate it.
so
I
I'm
appreciate
very
it.
pleased to hear that.
We're going over right now the roads that need to be repaved. So that
Okay.
was at the top of the list.
Thank you.
So
I look
appreciate
forward to continue to work together to make a village the best that it can be.
Thank you very much, Trustee Simeoni. We'll go to Trustee Stevenson. And Roy, I was hoping you're going to talk a little bit about the Business Revitalization Committee.
Okay.
Thank you.
Part of the master plan emphasizes that a vibrant and prosperous business district is a very important part of the village of Southampton. And I'm fortunate enough to have been appointed by the mayor to head up the Business Revitalization Committee, which includes Eldon Scott, Jeannie Strulas, Dee Dee Godhoff, let's see if I can remember, Bessem Kujaz, and Nancy Kane, and Jeff Hull. All people who are various stakeholders in the village's business. Our first meeting was a week ago, and our goal is to figure out what needs to be done, if anything, to improve our village's business district on a short-term basis. We all understand that the creating a sewer in the village business district will make many things possible, but we want to see what can be done in the short term. That is to identify the problem. Are pop-up stores a problem? One of the things that was brought up is the initial meeting brought up many different viewpoints about what the problems are. Parking, the slowdown of business in the shoulder seasons when less people are here, and I look forward to continuing to meet with this committee and get input from broader cross-section of the community to identify what everybody sees as an ideal solution for what the business district in Southampton Village should be. So that's the update on that, Bill.
Thank you.
I also wanted to just briefly talk about how fortunate we are to have such excellent emergency services here in the village. We heard from our police chief, Captain Chief Hertow today. We have a wonderful fire department and emergency services. And a few days ago, there was an incident. We received a message from Chris Brenner on August 6th. There was a call in the morning where a subject had fallen at a construction site and was in a basement on Elm Street. He had fallen approximately 10 feet and struck his head, causing a severe laceration. The ambulance that initially got there called the fire department for a technical rescue to help get the injured person out of the basement. The village medic arrived and provided life-saving measures. Dan Fawcett was amazing, as was the crew that was with him. Alfie Callahan was also assisting the medic with patient care. The fire department, led by Assistant Chiefs Polis Walker and Ricky Fowler, did an incredible job. Dean McNamara, Chris Capalbo, and Keith Elliston orchestrated a rescue from the basement to an awaiting ambulance. The ambulance transported the injured to an awaiting Suffolk County Police medevac, which landed in Aldrich Lane near the 7-Eleven. It was a true team effort with great equipment, everybody working together. The patient is recovering, and it was a great story for the village, and we should be so proud of the men and women who contribute their time and efforts to make this all possible. So I did want to mention that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Stevenson. Trustee Zananti.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended with you the Town Traffic Committee meeting on July 31st, where the county traffic engineer, really presented the history and all the options going back 30 plus years of discussions about County Road 39 and traffic issues. I guess the message, and we have a meeting coming up in September, and I've invited Chief Hertow to the meeting because there'll be some discussion about kind of micro solutions on more villagey streets than the County Road 39. The takeaway really is that there's not one solution to this terrible problem. There is a coming together of thought, and the discussions will continue with all parties, but it'll have to be a many-faceted approach to solving this problem, and that's becoming clearer and clearer. And lastly, I just want to give a shout out to Charles Pelez. I am the liaison to the building department and to the code enforcement, and I do appreciate his employee recognition award. He's the leader of our code enforcement group, and they do a great job, and he is a very deserving employee. So thank you and good night.
Thank you very much, Trustee Zananti. So the one out-of-the-box idea that has been floated at those traffic meetings of how to help relieve some of the congestion and volume on County Road 39 is actually, and I've spoken to County Executive Ed Romaine about this, is to use the PSEG high-tension right-of-way, which is about 60 feet wide, that goes to the north of the village, north of Bridgehampton, and then comes back down into East Hampton Village, and to maybe have that as a limited access highway. So there would not be a lot of ons and offs. You would not have curb cuts. Someone, if they are traveling east or west from Southampton to East Hampton, would be able to get on that and really travel without much interruption to their final destination and do the reverse late in the day. So that might be a solution. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of a ways off. It's going to be very costly. But we talked about money from the Federal Department of Transportation, as well as the state, the county. Everybody would have to pitch in. But it was one of the out-of-the-box ideas that was mentioned as a possible help with the traffic volume that we have on the South Fork, so that everyone would not have to travel only on 39 and 27. I did want to say some of the more fun things that I've gotten to do recently was open the new Windmill Lane Baking Company on Windmill Lane, and was very happy to be there. They didn't have a ribbon. They had a baguette that I tore in half, which was quite fun. And then I did, as some saw in the Southampton press, get to go and cut the ribbon at the Heart of the Hamptons. Finally, they are in their new home, the old ambulance barn, and that was really well attended and very exciting for them and those that they serve, that they now have that great facility open. And so I was happy to participate in that. Steve Phillips wanted me to mention that he knows we've been getting inundated with rain. He is still working very diligently on drainage projects. We just completed another drainage project that was about $40,000. So these are not inexpensive projects, but necessary projects to continue to improve the infrastructure of the village. And one item I wanted to mention is we are working with the town trustees and others to fix the culvert that goes on Boyson Road across Taylor Creek that really is failing. I know the residents there have been concerned with that for some time, but I wanted to let them know that we are diligently working on this. I can't say exactly when we'll have a solution, but there has to be some engineering involved, and we will get there. But Steve Phillips wanted me to make sure that people knew that we were still working on drainage projects. And that brings me to mention the addition of the bioswales on Cooper's Farm Road. Those have been excavated. They're going to be very shallow. So, unlike other bioswales we have in the village, they're going to be very shallow. They're mostly going to be grass. And that will, again, help divert water from the roadway into these shallow areas of grass on the side of the road where the water can filter down, as opposed to just running into the culvert that takes it directly into Lake Agawam at the bottom of Cooper's Farm Road at Windmill Lane. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the Johnson Controls is really making great progress on the solar installation at behind the Village Ambulance Barn for that building and police headquarters. There are some large steel structures that have been erected. They are going to be putting on the solar panels very soon, but that will be a great step forward in trying to improve, again, the energy usage at those facilities, which I said, as everyone knows, are 24/7. Finally, I'm very pleased that we were able to reach an agreement with Beechwood for the $685,000 for the park fund. And I would like to earmark the $685,000 for the improvements at Moses Park. Moses Park was acquired by CPF money, I think under Mayor Epley's mayoralty, and it has been a park that we were committed to having some sort of active use there. We're not going to do the pickleballs. I think we're going to do bocce as well as have a playground for younger members of the village community. And so this will follow on with the playground that we're doing at Downs Family Park. So we will have a playground on the eastern section. Moses will be for the western section, and then of course we have the central ones at Lake Agawam and up in Hillcrest. So we were very lucky that we were able to get this $685,000, which we can earmark as park money for the improvements at Moses Park, which we are working with the town CPF to get our plans approved, because they have to approve it as it was purchased with CPF money at a not insignificant price. Anyway, so I'm very happy to report on that. And otherwise, I think that is it for this meeting. And we have nothing to discuss in executive session today. So I would make a motion to adjourn this meeting of the Board of Trustees at 8:46 on August 8th.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you all very much.
Thank you.